Hey everyone, hope you're doing well out there. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to express how thankful I am to each and every one of you who have reached out to me and shared your experience listening to the show. Hearing how this has resonated with you has been extremely motivating and meaningful to me. So truly, thank you. With that being said, here's Season 2, Episode 1 with rapper Alan Weiss. Alan Weiss. You are an artist, rapper, videographer, producer, talented editor, and much more. Your music, art, and work ethic inspire your peers and fans alike with your refreshing originality and aesthetic that you bring both to the visual and sonic realm alike. You are an inspiration and your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. Alan Weiss, thank you for being here.
Wow. Of course. I'm excited to be here.
So, first, I wanted to tell you how I had first heard of you. So I was recording with Niece for quite some time, and I still do. But when she was really recording, like almost every weekend, she suddenly came to the studio one day and she was like, "You gotta hear this guy. This guy is." She was super hyped.
Mhm.
Like, this guy is so talented. Like she was just putting me on to your music, and I was like, "Okay, all right." And then as soon as I heard you and started seeing you release music, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I started seeing you around. You came over to shoot some photos and stuff. You were doing videography work, and so
Mhm.
I've been inspired by your work, ever since.
Wow. That's dope. Shout out Niece. I
Yes,
love Niece.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. She totally put me on, so shouts out to her, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, first thing I wanted to ask is, could you tell us a bit about Forest Green, what it is, its purpose, and when you founded it?
Um, well, Forest Green, wow. It's kind of it's one of those things that goes kind of deep because there's like the philosophy of like what Forest Green is, like the title of it, but then there's just like the like production company kind of. And Forest Green, the title is something that I just came up with based off like kind of growing up in the hood basically. And I remember me and my bro Keith, we used to just like go to like kind of just like go out in like nature and like go to parks and shit. And like I was just like, damn, the contrast between like how the hood is and how like nature is like insane. And I just fell in love with like green and shit. So
Mm,
I feel like I just had to explain like forest green itself like as a separate thing, but I just slapped that title onto my video work.
gotcha. Yeah, it's like usually you associate hip hop with kind of a concrete jungle kind of vibe
Yeah.
where like entering like the hip hop into this natural like forest, nature
Yeah.
area is like really cool and
Yeah.
refreshing to see that. Like just bringing that, be like, hey, this is here too. Like this is
Yeah.
not
And it
even
was
more
like
part of it than we think.
yeah, it was like some real like life changing stuff, you know, because like you grow up just seeing like everything in your environment and like I don't know, like stuff like that wasn't even like something I really thought about a lot until my homie he got like a job at a restaurant and started hanging with some like different cool people that like wasn't from our neighborhood and stuff. And they started like taking him on like hikes and stuff. And he's like,
Mm,
bro, you got to start doing this. And I'm just like, all right, why not? And it like really like changed my perspective on like life.
mm,
And it seems kind of small, but I feel like it's important to bring up because it's really small, but it's something a lot of people just don't excuse me, just don't experience.
yeah.
And that's something that I see daily. It's like a bunch of like kids in the hood that just don't even know that you can just hang out in nature where it's quiet and you could just hear the wind and look at the trees and like it'll
Hmm.
change your life, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just the significance of like Forest Green and it like the title of it because, I put it on everything. So I just feel like it's important to explain that part of it.
Yeah. I think that is an important thing for young people to remember that,
Mhm.
there you can go and have some privacy and like oneness, like
Mhm.
with the world out at your local park. Really,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
you walk down one of those trails and go off the beaten path a little bit, and you can kind of
Yeah.
just sit and maybe experience your first form of meditation.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
up until you really meditate or have that kind of peace, especially if you live in a house with a lot of people, a lot of
Yeah.
roommates,
Exactly.
sometimes you can be totally separated from that feeling of peace or privacy.
Mhm.
And we all can relate to that moment. We like sometimes for a lot of people that's their car.
Yeah.
That car is the safe place.
Yeah.
And that's the one place you can actually think. And for young people who, haven't got a car yet, and like sometimes they feel like just it's their room, or as soon as the moment they shut that bathroom door is like, okay, I can like think for like a
Yeah.
moment, and they
It's
can experience
exactly
that in
that.
nature, which is
Yeah.
a really good thing to point out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it took for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's a good reminder to have.
Mhm.
So, can you talk about Bandcamp and why it's an important alternative to a major streaming platform?
Yeah. Well, Bandcamp itself, there's a bunch of platforms like it, but with Bandcamp, it's just a platform where you buy music directly from the artist, and there's no like subscription or anything. It's like an old school way of just like buying an album. The artist puts the album up, they say it costs this much, you buy it, you own it forever.
Mm.
And like I said, there's a bunch of different platforms like that. But I just think that model is is something we shouldn't just like forget about completely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we're losing pretty fast, but I hate to think, that one day we won't have record stores, but, Bandcamp will still be there in a big way for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just it's I don't mind the alternatives. Like I don't really mind like streaming for certain things, and like if your goals are outside or just like I want everybody to be able to access my music anywhere. I mean, I guess that's how you do it. But there is an artistry to it that I feel like is undermined by like that the industry side of it, like the
Yeah.
business side of it. And that's common in art in general, but I think it's kind of just weird that music is kind of like the only form of art where it's not normal for the artist to just say like this is how much my art costs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and when you do, like, it's looked at as kind of like weird when it should be the standard,
Mhm.
you know. And I just think after a while, if you care, like if you really care about the art, it just makes sense like to go by that model just for the principle, I
Yeah.
guess.
Absolutely. And you're totally right in how we've seen how the industry or the industry shapes how some music is made even. Like
Hmm.
I always use the example of uh back when before streaming, uh record labels were competing for airtime. And so, they have you bring the hook back in two more times
Mm,
to make the song longer.
yeah,
So your song's on the air for more times. Now they kind of want the opposite. Just have the hook come in twice because they want them to run it back.
yeah,
And I look at albums now like I think this was just totally a pure form of like artistry and just a unique outlook on how to create music. But Tierra Whack's Whack World, that
hmm,
the 1 minute songs, it's like exactly what your record label wishes that
yeah,
probably every artist is coming out with now.
yeah,
Like in their fantasy world, every artist they have is like coming out with 45-second song, 1 minute
yeah,
songs, just so people will run it back over and over again. When
yeah,
in the day they're like, just make it like 8 minutes, just so when they
yeah,
put your song on, it's just a song, then a commercial break. So they can't they kind of force the other artists or other labels like off the grid pretty much.
yeah,
And that's crazy how that affects the art at the end of it. It's
yeah,
like I I had this artistic expression I was trying to give out,
yeah,
but the label's like, "Well, extend it or make it shorter." It's
yeah,
like there shouldn't be that say, and so you're cutting out that, producer in the room who
Yeah.
ruins movies or whatever,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
who's saying, well, you should do it this way because, I'm giving you the money for it. And
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
it should just be an artist audience relationship, just
Mhm.
direct, kind of farm to
Yeah.
table kind of thing where it's like the artist creates it and then it goes directly to the intended audience,
Yeah.
not gets filtered through this machine that's like, oh, right, yeah, this is okay, this is okay, we want this different. And just because we're, our think tank right now is saying that this is more popular.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And it's like it's not even only about like, oh, me being able to charge what I want for my music. It's also just like on the like fan side of it, consumer side of it. I feel like it's like, as you said, it's more of a relationship. And I remember times like when I was a kid, I remember getting gifted the Kanye West graduation album for Christmas, and I asked for it. And when I got it, I didn't even expect it to be like an experience like that. Like
mm,
it was like it had posters in it and pictures and all kinds of stuff like that was in
right.
my room for years. Like my whole life as a kid, I had this graduation poster that I got for Christmas that was just in the CD. And
Mm.
like I don't think it's possible to have that type of relationship with an album if it just comes out at midnight and you stream it and it's like a couple in your playlist. And like buying an album on Bandcamp or a service like it isn't that exact experience, but it is more like here's money directly to my artist, and here's an album that's like mine, and I get to keep it. And the same thing applies to like physicals and stuff. Like I just feel like that relationship is almost gone when it comes to like uh the music industry and how it is now, like in the streaming era or whatnot. Is like I think it kind of just explains that feeling of music in general not being that exciting, as it used to feel. I don't
Mhm.
know. It maybe it's just me, but it feels like there's a general consensus that like maybe just at least just in hip hop is getting kind of like stale, like the money's getting low, the everybody's album sales are low, and like I don't know. It's like
Taking
because
more shortcuts.
yeah, like people don't like the music itself, like there's no tangibility to it, and it's like so just like scroll click, I like this one, I don't like that one, versus just like I bought this album, I'm gonna really give it a try, really live with it, you
Mhm.
know, really get my money's worth
Yeah,
instead of like infinitely paying 10, 12, whatever dollars a month to like maybe listen to the same playlist over and over again,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely resonated what said about tangibility. You make a connection with that artist, especially when you say like, when you stream a song at midnight and then it's there and it's gone and
Mhm.
it's like it existed in this digital realm only.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
especially when, there's this ceremoniousness about like going to the store like to get the new album. When I lived in Detroit, I went to get the new Jadakiss album, Kiss of
Mhm.
Death, when it came out. And
Wow.
I went to, I think it was a Target or some a record shop, and there was like a line, like, and I got one of the very last ones. And I just remember opening it up and like reading all the lyrics
Mhm.
and seeing all the promotional pictures that were in there. And I think there was like a sticker in there too.
Mhm.
And I know everybody who played like the Elder Scrolls games as a kid who got a physical copy of it, like they
Mhm.
had that poster in their room of the
Yeah.
Skyrim map,
Yeah. I had one
and
for
or
Grand
the
Theft
GT
Auto.
or Grand Theft Auto. I was
Yeah.
just about to say Grand Theft Auto map in the room. If
Yeah.
that was if we grew up during that digital age, we just wouldn't have those tangible things.
Yeah.
That if you're being devil's advocate, it's like, well, you're just getting stuff, and it's like, well, it's more than just stuff. It's not like,
Yeah.
if a skeptic would be say something like, you're just getting this like CD that's gonna get scratched, and and then you're just gonna toss it, and what's that all worth? But you are receiving this gift from this
Hmm.
artist.
Yeah,
And
and it's an experience while
yeah,
while it's there, and
yeah,
that's important.
it is.
It's better than. Well, I'm not gonna say it's better than, but like that whole thing translates to other mediums too, like gaming and like movies.
Hmm.
Everything is the same way where you just scroll through an infinite amount of it and you try a little bit of something and nothing really means anything because there's so much and it's so accessible. And like, I don't know. It seems like almost like a good problem, like in theory. Like it's so much and it's
Hmm.
all there, it's all accessible, but there's no connection to the art. And the way that it's set up, it just the way that the money in the business trickles down, there's like none for the artist and
Yeah,
there's billions for whoever is at the top,
yeah,
you know? And I don't know. I just as an artist, it it just is more fulfilling for me to try to establish that relationship with some tangibility with the fans and supporters who care about that versus just here's something for everybody who anybody who cares, you know.
hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. And Bandcamp, because we could speculate, pros and cons endlessly of, there's this endless ocean of music, so it kind of feels like it's cheapening it all. But then, like, thank God there's an endless open ocean of music because it means young people are getting the tools to be able to create music. Like, the reason why there's so much more music, I believe, is because we've been given the tools. Like, every phone can be a mobile recording studio.
Yeah.
And that's a blessing because it'd be a shame if like a young Mozart out there or somebody who's just who would be one of the best rappers or hip hop
Yeah.
lyricists of all time just didn't have the means to record and so maybe
Yeah.
gave up on that and went to the factory job. But if they got the phone out, then that gets them motivated, hungry, and
Yeah.
people can hear no matter like we talk about quality sometimes, but like we've gotten to a point that's like pretty impressive even for our
Yeah.
low quality stuff.
Yeah.
It's you can still feel the passion and
Yeah.
the intention of the artist behind it. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
super polished. You can feel when somebody's hungry and
Yeah.
inspired behind there. And so Bandcamp, I feel like can tie those two worlds together where it's like we can get a tangibility through a merch sale through Bandcamp, where
Mhm.
if you buy the tape, you get it digitally, and I'm going to send you a cassette,
Mhm.
along with
Yeah.
it. So you get something in the mail directly from the artist. And
Yeah.
so when the artist is directly shipping it, you always get stuff thrown in, usually like a sticker, like a
Yeah.
personal note, even.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
that I've gotten that before where I bought on Bandcamp and they sit there and I've done it before when I've sold on Bandcamp. We've just
Mhm.
wrote notes to
Yeah.
the people, just, hey,
Yeah.
thank you, their name. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Our next shows are these, thank you for all your support. That kind
Yeah.
of stuff is just super meaningful and like kind of puts the soul back in to the
Exactly.
process,
Yeah.
where it can seem a bit disingenuous, not disingenuous too much, but it can feel just like there's that lack of connection,
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
you stream it at midnight, it's there, it's gone, and
Yeah.
because especially growing up with physical albums and physical media, uh, we I think our generation especially has a longing for that. But it makes me wonder what young people who grew up without physical media or will grow up without physical media will feel about that,
Mhm.
because I saw I, always look back and laugh at, we all went to a friend's house that had the shelf that took up a whole wall in the living
Yeah.
room, VHS tapes, DVDs, whatever. And it's like, that'd be, it'd be a shame. It's a shame that took up all that space when it could have been in the cloud and you could have put something nice there, like a
Yeah.
picture of you and your sister or whatever,
Yeah.
something nice that just didn't seem bulky and in the way. And I know a younger generation has got to look back at that and be like, oh my gosh, all this physical media just piled up in corners.
Yeah.
They go into a Goodwill and they're like, oh my gosh, how
I think
primitive.
there might be I think uh just on like a I don't know how what I'm trying to say exactly. like I think people could like a younger generations will fall in love with that again.
Hmm.
Like I think just the way like trends and stuff like go in cycles and like how like some younger kid is gonna get inspired by like the 90s and like 2050 and he's gonna be like, damn, I want to make some kind of physical medium
Hmm.
for my stuff. And then it's gonna start a trend and it'll probably be like that same thing over again. And, you know, they'll get to experience it. And I think that's just kind of like I feel like I'm just kind of doing my part
Hmm.
in that chain of events, you know, to try to like say like in the streaming era, at the least you could try this stuff, you
Yes.
know, like try Bandcamp, try to sell a little CD with a shirt, you
Hmm.
know, and write a note, try to establish like a real connection with people and, you know, try to make a song that's a little more than just what you think will be popular,
Yeah.
you know?
That for sure. Yeah. It's good to start. I feel like that's kind of good training wheels, I can speak from, like somebody who's learning an instrument. Uh you learn songs that already exist first so you can kind of find like how this thing works. And
Hmm.
I see young artists who I record with, like they record songs that sound like the artist they listen to first, and then they
Hmm.
can kind of find themselves. So
Yeah.
it's good for them to know that that's sometimes a part of the process, but to not lose yourself in an
I
identity
think
that
that's
doesn't belong
good
to you.
for sure.
That's huge.
I think that emulating people you like is almost like the perfect way to start.
Oh yeah.
I even tell people like if you listen to music, like if you in your car or whatever and you like want to rap, I think people should like try to rap along more.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
I think that helps. Like try to like if you want to rap and you like a certain artist and you listen to them a lot, like rap along with them,
Mhm.
like out loud. Try to match their volume and everything because I think all of that stuff matters and all art is that. Every artist is just like an amalgamation of everything they like with a little like dash of their experience too.
Mhm.
And I think there's that that's kind of like a cheat code if you one of those people that can channel your inspirations well, you know. Uh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, using inspirations that you got from other people, but channeling them through your own,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
and creating a unique one out of that.
Yeah, cause you're definite. I think that's I at least in my experience, I don't think I've ever seen anybody who doesn't like sound like their favorite rapper a little bit,
Mhm.
or their favorite producer, or like something like that. And I don't think it's something you should be ashamed of or anything, cause you'll find your sound through that. That's
Yeah,
how you.
absolutely.
I think there's just a natural process. So I think you should lean into it. If anything, like don't just fully bite people's music,
Of
like
course.
and like try to like fully be somebody else, but you know, you have a taste and there you have a reason why you like that stuff and it's okay to emulate it in your music, but tell your story, you know?
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, that's a really good way of saying that. So I remember when I mentioned before that you would come over to shoot photos.
Mhm,
I think it was you, Niece, and Shy.
mhm,
And I remember overhearing you talk about how you edit music videos,
mhm,
that you would shoot it, you would shoot the music video, and you would go home and immediately start editing it because you didn't like to sit on footage. And
mhm,
I've definitely found that I'm the exact same way.
mhm,
I will immediately get home, dump the SD cards, and start working on it right away because I feel as though there's this like momentum that's been started. And it's like a shame to stop that momentum. Sometimes things happen, you got work or something, but I love to get right to it and not waste any time. Like pretty much I've got quite a few where I got it back to the artist the next morning because I just
Yeah.
stayed up all night
Yeah.
because
Same.
there's nothing like that energy. I mean, that once again, the momentum when you're with the artist, you understand the feeling, the theme, and what the artist's intention is for the video. And you were just on location and you can go right there and
Yeah.
feel like you can get the truest edit out of that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what was your philosophy behind, you know, immediately starting to edit and not really sitting on footage? Because we've all, had or heard or worked with people who got the music videos to us like a month or two
Yeah.
later.
Which is crazy. I never understood that. But I also just really like to edit. I think editing is my favorite part of the process. I like to compose shots and like try to get creative with like angles and lighting and stuff.
Mm,
But I don't know if like the cinematography side of it is necessarily what I'm into. I just like really like editing, and I don't, you can't edit if you don't shoot anything. So
yes.
whenever I shoot, I'm always excited to just get home and start editing because I
Mhm.
always got so many ideas and like you know, just and like you said, like right, you just got done shooting, so all the ideas are still flowing and
It's
you
fresh.
just start looking at the footage and I get excited. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
the potential is crazy.
Mhm.
But I actually lately been really getting more into like the cinematography side of it. Like like actually like filming and like setting up really dope shots that almost don't even need an edit,
Yeah.
like that type of stuff. And I don't know. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Excited for
Is a wonderful process.
yeah.
When I first started, I'm still going through it and I love it. You're always learning and there's so many aspects to it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, I kind of struggle with the balance of this. Like, when you're prepping for a shooter, like, how much are you thinking ahead of the edit itself, o- or compared to just thinking about getting the shot?
Um
Mm,
mm, it's
Because
good.
sometimes, like, you go into a shot being like, "This is how I'm going to edit it."
Mhm.
And sometimes you go into a shot and you're like, I know this is the shot and I maybe have an idea, but the magic happens when you are editing and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
I think
like
that's what it
like
is.
this. Because I feel like there is a balance to be had there because you may, if you put yourself on rails, like when you're talking or doing the video treatment with the artist you're working with, you're like, it's gonna be like this. Or if it's just yourself, like, okay, it's gonna be like this. I'm gonna shoot the shot. I'm gonna edit it like that, and that's why it's like this, and it's gonna be perfect. And then,
Never
you
works
get
that way.
into you do the shot, and it's like, oh, it may not be exactly how what you thought, and then you get into the edit, and I feel like you could force that could go wrong pretty quickly
Mhm.
compared to you know striking a good balance
Mhm.
between having an intention for the shot and also letting the magic happen during the edit. Uh,
I think you just nailed it. Is exactly how I think about it. I kind of most of the time when I'm shooting, I have a loose idea of what I want. There's always like this ideal version of it playing in your head, like this is exactly what I want.
yeah.
But then you go shoot it, and maybe it's not exactly how you picturing it, but you get some good stuff, and the magic happens when you edit. I feel like every time I sit down and edit, I'm just like, oh my God, I see it now.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, it's like you get a calling to this idea, but you know that it's the one you want, but you don't know what the end result is.
That's like I have the AV Club series. I don't
Mm,
know if you're
I
familiar.
am familiar, yes.
Yeah, it's just I basically just started as like a way to just start filming.
Mhm.
Like I was just like I said, I like editing videos and making videos, and I'm like I need to film something to have something to make,
Yeah.
and I just started like I actually explained it in the first AV Club episode. It's shot like way more like like a YouTube vlog or something. Like I talk to the camera a lot and explain what I'm doing. But the later AV Club episodes are way more like loose and like abstract and just like like random shots. And I don't even remember where I was going with that.
When you were setting up a shot, like to like the editing balance.
Oh, yeah. Well, oh no, that's what I was gonna say. The magic in the editing.
Yeah.
That's where I went on that tangent about AV Club. Cause that is not even that nothing about that is planned. And that's all magic in the editing. Like everything I just when I make the AV Club stuff, I'm just like I have a bunch of clips from this period to this period and I'm gonna try to make it like fun to watch, or at least just like have on and like be like, this is cool.
Hmm.
Like I kind of wanted the vibe to almost be like Adult Swim is on your TV for like 30 minutes, and it's just like random stuff happening. It might
Yeah.
be like a performance or a music video or just like somebody talking or like you know trippy effects
Hmm.
and yeah. So when it comes to like the way I do videos, I think it's mainly like I have this idea. I'm gonna try to get some footage of it and make something happen in the edit.
Yeah. I'm the same way, and I always try to strike a good balance there. And sometimes, yeah, I think it's really important to kind of let what happens happen, in a more like lean into what's given to you.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's an intention maybe from the universe is like, this is what's been given to us. Let's work with it and lean into it instead of, you know, going against the grain because there's only going to be friction if you do that.
Yeah. But then there's also like like you got like people like on the film side like Wes Anderson and like obviously like Quentin Tarantino, like these like iconic people who are known for like these perfect shots.
Mm.
And like I just wonder like if they have that philosophy at all either. I mean also like or do they go into it like it has to be exactly like this?
Yeah, I feel when at that master class level, it's a battle, and I feel like they have a storyboarded exact angle. It's gonna look just like this, and it's in their
Hmm.
head, and they view it as like going to war with the environment, with the camera,
Hmm.
with the lens, with the actor, and making
Yeah.
sure like using all of your years and years of skills and expertise to actually pull off the shot that's in your head. And I think
Yeah.
that's what master level is
Yeah.
that
True.
that shot in your head you can manifest.
Yeah.
And it's finding all the gear that works just right for you, but also just knowing what angles are possible, what could happen,
Yeah.
because
True.
and just weird stuff people don't think about, like where's the sun going to be at this time,
Yeah.
where's the lighting, how's the lighting going to be. I think that's the thing that gets us like beginners like me like the most is like
Yeah.
the lighting. And I was like, huh, it's like
Yeah.
I don't only need to just bring, like, I have like a big poster card that's white for reflecting natural sunlight, but
Mhm.
I found like the deep importance of bringing something that takes away light from a scene, which
Mhm.
is possible. And so like
Yeah.
brings some really good ambience because,
Yeah.
starting out, I'm just like, oh, we'll just make sure everything's blown out with light just so we can see
Yeah.
everything. It's like, no, it's actually, it's like the space in between the notes. It's like
Yeah.
the silence or the darkness, like the lack of lighting in a scene is
Yeah.
just as important as the lighting itself, because
That
what
is funny. That's always
is
how
a
it is.
suggestion of something else, or it adds gravity to a lot of shots, just having that absence of light.
Yeah. 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 Precisely.
And I feel when I'm editing, and I'm wondering if you feel this way too, that this flow state we reach when we edit, where, these hours pass by and, you look at the clock and you're like, whoa, oh my gosh, but you were just so into it and you feel just locked in. I feel like this is pretty close to something like meditation and this heightened state of consciousness. I was
Yeah.
wondering how you feel about that or what your experience is with that.
Um, I think that I mean, I definitely know exactly what you mean, and I think that's I don't know what exactly that is. I think like it's been like studied too. Like I think I saw like a video or something about the flow state
Oh yeah.
and like how like we just get like people try to like figure out how to like manually get into the flow state because it's like you almost turn your brain off and the work just gets done somehow. And
Yes.
and 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 editing in particular and like stuff like music is like super interesting to me because I think I get that a lot when I'm making beats too. Like it's almost like it, I don't it's it's just strange. It's like you just enter the flow state and ideas just come and everything just it's like Tetris just falling into place and then you just end up there.
Yeah. It makes me feel as if we might be a conduit for consciousness. As if consciousness is something that passes through us,
Hmm.
and in heightened states of awareness or heightened states of uh, consciousness, we can tap into that connection more. We be our signal strength becomes, a lot stronger. Like our antenna is a
Yeah,
lot better, and so we become more open to outer influences from
yeah. The
whatever
beyond.
it might be, wherever consciousness comes from. If uh I guess that depends, like what you subscribe to, whether you believe in fundamental consciousness or emergent consciousness. And
Yeah.
if it's fundamental, then it's something that's outside of us, like a dualism,
Mhm.
like between our body and mind. And perhaps it feels like, yeah, once again, to reiterate, like when we are into that flow state, and people see this in like religion, people for years try to get to that state you get when you're just editing your music video, but just
Yeah.
by like through other avenues. But we get there, we have like a fast lane to
Yeah.
this, something that people studied years to achieve.
Yeah.
And when you're just, that time goes away and you just become a vessel for this artistic expression, and it
Yeah.
seems to flow through you from
Yeah.
the metaphysical world to the physical world into your
Bruh.
software.
Bruh.
And so when you reach that state, it becomes more easily like, it's almost like an aperture. When it's closed or small, we can only let so much of that external influence in. But through this
Exactly.
meditation and editing process, that aperture gets bigger and allows more to come through and easily work uh, through
Man.
us.
And I think about that a lot. You just worded that like perfectly. But I say it to people all the time when like it comes to like out like specifically music and like rapping and stuff. It's like I feel like it's just channeling from somewhere else. Like I don't know what it is, but like writing raps, I'm like so nasty. Like I don't even I literally cannot explain. Like I'll write some shit and be like, where did that come from?
Yes.
Like this is crazy. And like, I don't know. I think when you said that we're almost like a vessel for like consciousness to just flow through, I think that might be also kind of tied to like the philosophy I was talking about with embracing your influences and stuff.
Mm,
Because I think all of that, all of that stuff is tied together. Like when you enter that flow state, I think it has something to do with that. Like your mind is just like, this is where I'm comfortable. Like this is where I know exactly what I'm doing, where I'm just like, I'm chilling. I'm an expert here, you know. I'm
mhm,
I'm comfortable. I'm having fun, enjoying what I'm doing, and I don't need anything else right now but this. And
mm,
you just enter the flow state.
yeah. I've heard there's this professor called Rupert Sheldrake, and he has been studying this phenomenon, and he calls it morphic resonance. And he thinks consciousness is like a electromagnetic field around us that stores information. And it's like there's a client side and server side. And us being the client side, we get and download information from nodes in this morphic resonant electromagnetic spectrum that has contains consciousness as we know it, which is a
Uh,
quantum process.
that's interesting.
And and he says morphic resonance can almost be proven through these processes like we think of a really big example he uses is like when somebody does a feat in sports, like somebody runs the 100-yard dash in 2 minutes for the very first time ever, and
Hmm.
then after that, it just seems to be the standard. It's
Hmm.
like this was something that no one had ever done before, but it
Hmm.
seems like there's this downloaded of information, and
Yeah.
he talks about doing like tests of he has like 100 people do the same crossword puzzle on one day, and then the next day he has a person do like 5 crossword puzzles, and the one that everybody else did the previous day, they do the fastest and by a large margin, as if there's
Mm.
some information there. And there's some
Yeah.
more scientific kind of tests on that. Like every time, it's like common knowledge among chemists that when you synthesize a compound for the first time and crystallize it for the first time, it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes years and years for it to crystallize for the first time. But once it has been synthesized, then every time after that happens faster. And that's all around the world,
Yeah.
which is very odd. And they've done there's countless things having mice run a maze in one side of the world, and then on the other they do it twice as fast. Like his idea mainly with morphic resonance is that information is stored almost like on nodes in this quantum consciousness field, and we tap into that and kind of share that
Yeah.
information. And so when like big things happen in the world or big shifts, and like if there's a big paradigm shift, we all kind of hop onto it together in a bigger way. Or like why like people from all around the world started inventing certain technologies even though that they were completely separate, culturally.
Yeah.
Like we see like why did these people, make these kind of structures here and they're identical here when there's no way they could have known each other from that.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting
It is
to
very
think of
interesting.
that. And there's other really interesting theories. And there's this guy, Roger Penrose, who thinks that consciousness is a quantum process that happens biologically, which has been proven with robins. They have a protein in their brain that actually goes through a quantum process. And so there's a superposition in their brain, a quantum process that actually tells them where the magnetosphere of the earth is and lets them visualize it so they know how to go south or north. And so,
Wow.
and we're thinking that lots of birds may have this, but we never thought that quantum process could happen in biology,
Hmm.
because when we have quantum computers, we put them in a vacuum, has to be
Yeah.
like 0 Kelvin, like super
Yeah.
cold, super in a vacuum and undisturbed. Even like ionized radiation from space, it has to be shielded from that because if those ionized particles could mess with like the qubits and then like just miscalculate and don't work. So it's super sensitive. So you almost have to have these things underground or in
Yeah.
like a Faraday cage of some sort. And uh, this quantum process seems to happen in our own brains, and they're called microtubules in our brain. They're all over our body, but they seem to actually have a quantum process. And he's thinking that, and it just like he's had this theory for maybe 30 years, but now it's like starting to have a lot of backing behind it that
Hmm.
there is a quantum process that happens in our brains, that the emergence of that process, or a a product of that quantum process, is consciousness that we experience, which is
Mm.
is another interesting one. But it seems like we're coming closer and closer to kind of unraveling this mystery of where consciousness comes from, and it seems more and more that is not emergent from us individually, because it's not making as much sense
Hmm.
that consciousness is of the individual.
Yeah.
We are individually us because of our experiences and everything, but it's like we're given this life through and this freedom through some other process that's all around us, perhaps.
Yeah, man. Whoever designed this is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible that we're experiencing this at all.
Yeah,
And just seemingly out of nothing. It's
I
quite
know.
fantastic. So I see why people easily can turn to, well, there's a big creator, and because it's all super intentional, it seems,
Yeah, and
it
not to
seems to have
be.
intelligent design.
Yeah,
If we
and not
look at
to.
our DNA, it's like very wild to look at how
Yeah,
exact everything's kind of coded, and that we can
yeah,
store information on DNA. It blew
yeah,
my brain, like mind, when they stored information on like RNA for the first time. They put a movie as if it was a flash drive. They just put like an MP4 file on RNA and then resynthesized it, and it was just still DNA. But like, imagine we synthesize our DNA or get DNA from somebody, and in the genetic code, there's like an MP4 file of like
yeah,
Lord of the Rings. And you're like, wait, what? Like future, you could extract that, if someone's frozen in ice and we
yeah.
took a caveman and like got his DNA and we found like information like that on there, we'd be like, wait, what? Like it would make us rethink everything
Yeah,
we've ever thought before. But we did it. It's possible. So if we did it, who
yeah.
knows? Like that's pretty interesting.
That if we did it, it's starting to like really give me an existential crisis nowadays because we are doing everything like fast. Like it just like even with like gaming in particular, like this is I started playing. Have you ever heard of Dreams?
I have. Is it the game where you make games?
Yeah, I
Yes.
started playing that and I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I started like it kind of just teaches you basic game development. It's not really a game. It's like a engine.
Toolkit.
Yeah, yeah, like a creative toolkit. And like look like the way that they characterize stuff and like they name stuff in game development the same as like reality, like the physics is like gravity and
Mm.
like the way that you in game development, the way that you move stuff around like 3D space and like you create logic for like how stuff interacts with each other and like all of that stuff started like to actually make me go like, hold on, this is this, but just way more advanced. And I know it's not like some crazy like, oh my God, it's a simulation, but it's just like the more our technology advances, the more that I can't ignore
Yeah.
how similar our reality is to just like a super futuristic version of the simulations we're making.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
You can
it's
see
just
the
like a
roads going
mirror
there. Yeah.
almost. It's like we're just in like the PS1 graphics era of it.
Yeah.
It's like and I don't know, even like I wasn't aware like the stuff you just put me onto. I'm not
Mm.
gonna try to repeat all of it, but even that, I always kind of had like a sense of that, like the feeling that consciousness is just like um a thing that we all just kind of like pull from, and like the quantum processes in our brain, like I don't know. I'm
But it
I was trying
resonated
to
with you. It
explain
always kind of made
outside. Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
yeah. I was trying to explain outside of like my vocabulary, but the stuff that you are saying is making sense, and it kind of just adds to that feeling I already had of like this is like identical to me, like messing around in dreams almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy how the UI is getting so good. Like people programming video games back in the day, it's like just like MS DOS, like no GUI
Yeah,
interface, no UI at all. Just
yeah,
like it's
just
nightmare mode, just
yeah,
like for somebody today. But now, like in dreams, like these software are becoming way more user friendly
yeah,
in a way that's like, whoa, like anybody could do this. Like
yeah.
I had one of my artists is like, yo, CapCut is the wave of the future. It's just so easy. It just makes so much sense. He's like,
Hmm.
I opened up like Adobe Premiere? And I was like, absolutely not. And then like they opened up Final Cut and they're like, yeah, okay, still no, too complicated. And then
Mm-hmm.
they say CapCut is perfect for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I opened it up. I have the desktop version as well as the mobile one. And I was like, yeah, things just there's just lessons have been learned from previous
Yeah.
software.
I haven't
Things
tried it
that are
yet.
intuitive. I've been just kind of against it because I'm just really a Final Cut guy because I
Mm-hmm.
like my ProRes and everything that I
Mm-hmm.
can get all the advantages that it has with like the automatic rotoscoping and multicam and everything. I don't know what I'd do without multicam. But I I totally understand how CapCut uh, is the more appealing, and will I believe CapCut will be, if it's not already, the most used, widely used software and the number one video editing software in the world. And
Yeah.
I foresee like real movies, huge budget movies being made on CapCut in the future
Yeah.
because there's nothing wrong with a good UI just making sense. If the
Yeah.
stuff under the hood's good, then who cares about the front side?
Yeah.
Just like if it makes sense, that once you learn a software that you feels like complicated, like you learn Adobe Premiere and you're like, I'm sticking with this because it's like a sunk cost fallacy
Yeah.
where you're like,
Yeah.
I put so much time learning this. Like, you know how many
Yeah.
YouTube videos I watched trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to do this stuff, and you're telling
Yeah.
me, oh, well, it's so much easier now that everybody else is using. Well, it's like, well, I learned this thing, so I'm gonna
Right.
stick with what I invested all this time into. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to not be an old dinosaur like that where I'm just like, well, don't broke what ain't fixed.
Yeah.
Like it's got to it, you have to be dynamic and malleable in
Yeah.
nowadays because things change so fast. So I'm trying to be mindful to not stick with be like the nothing against Cubase, but being against like the artist who's like, I'm gonna use Cubase for the rest of my life
Yeah.
because the my mentor taught me with Cubase and his mentor in the 80s taught
Yeah.
him in Cubase, and it's really hard to learn. But
Mm.
once you get it, you're like, okay, I got it. I
Yeah.
finally feel safe. And then, because like the idea of like after you learn something so complicated, like a software, any of them are hard.
Yeah.
But the idea of someone like, okay, and learn another one and perhaps
Yeah.
maybe not use that ever again.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, because I tried to justify learning as many audio softwares as I can because I make the joke about having like the Thanos glove with every single DAW on it
Mhm.
and being able to go into any studio, like
Yeah.
whatever the space, and just have it like almost like a flex, but just the
Yeah.
knowledge
Yeah.
of like going to any studio and just knowing how to work whatever. It's like, what DAW are you
Yeah.
using? Okay, cool. I got you.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you walk into a modern studio and you're like, it's like, oh yeah, this is Clemson. What? It came out like last week. You haven't heard about it? Everyone's using it. They're like, oh
Yeah.
no. I
Yeah.
just learned like Reaper the other day just to try to cover my bases, and now this new thing's
I
coming out.
haven't heard of Reaper.
You haven't heard of Reaper? Yeah,
Nah.
that's a new that's a new audio software. It's like it's open source. It's like in the same vein as DaVinci Resolve, where it's
Mm.
like free, really good,
Yeah.
uh and yeah, just open source so people can make it better.
That's the last thing I almost switched to, but it was literally what you just said. Like I was like, I've been doing Premiere this long.
Mhm.
Yo, I
And you
didn't
can
know.
understand how kids look at Premiere and they're like, "Fuck that."
Yeah,
Yeah.
the same with with like Fruity Loops too. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
few times I mean that's my dog choice. I'm not like a dog, like I don't care about
Yeah.
that stuff, but uh it to me is it makes sense, but I've been using it like my whole life almost, but I can understand it if somebody like looks at that and is like, I don't want to. So I'm all for like what's the one that people record with on their phone? Uh like the little phone DAW.
Oh, so there's GarageBand, BandLab, and
BandLab, that's the
BandLab?
one I'm thinking of.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, somebody one of my friends showed me BandLab and I was like very impressed.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
good.
I'm all for it. Like I'm like, bro, if you can make music with that, by all means, like there's no need for you to invest in anything. If it sounds good, there's like that, like popular like story about Steve Lacy making Pride for Kendrick,
Yep.
and it's just like him playing guitar and his phone, and that's literally what's sampled in the beat. It's like if it sounds good, it's done.
Yeah.
Like it's that simple. If it sounds good to you, it's done. Don't overthink it. you can always tweak something to be like sound a little crispier or a little fuller, but it's never gonna sound perfect.
Yeah.
Like there's never gonna be a point where you like this just sounds perfect after all of these tweaks, and you can like get into like like when you tweak something so much that it's ruined completely.
Yeah,
God.
we've all been there.
Yeah.
I've seen artists do it too. It's like they just I add so many layers to this. They add a bunch of, layers and then they get rid of the original layers and they're like,
Yeah.
"Wait, where did what even happened
What
here?"
is this now?
Yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, we struggle with. Like, when is a song done? Like,
Yeah.
when
But
to
you
let
gotta
go of it. It's hard to let go of something that you're like, I feel like this is the one, or this is so
yeah.
good.
But you gotta do it a bunch to
Yeah,
that's the only way.
to know.
Yeah. That's what I always tell people too. Like you gotta just keep doing it, and everyone isn't gonna be the one. No matter
Mhm.
what art you're doing, either it's not just music, it's whatever you do. Like you gotta just embrace it in the moment. And if it's bad, it's bad. But you gotta like make a bunch of bad ones to get a real good one. You know?
Yeah,
That's how it is
absolutely.
with the songs. Like every song I make doesn't go on an album, or
Mhm.
every beat I make don't get rapped on, but it's all just process.
Yeah,
And you gotta
absolutely.
get all of those to get the good ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to think. It's hard to realize that the songs you're making while you're like growing or in that process early on are songs that it's okay to kind of, make or just leave alone for a bit because you
Yeah.
will make something better.
Yeah.
I think that's the the large hump that artists like need to get over first, is like knowing that you're going to make something better and better and better. Like,
Yeah.
what you just made feels like it doesn't get better than this. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is this is the best because it's
Yeah.
the best thing you've made.
Yeah.
But just knowing like you're going to get better and better in that, and trust that process, that
Yeah.
that'll happen, is important. And just looking at your peers, doing that just helps a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, what is a piece of wisdom do you think that young artists need to hear? Like, that you wish
Um,
you heard?
um, I don't know. I kind of it's funny. I think about this a lot. Like, I always think to myself, like, if I met myself at a younger age and I could tell myself something that might make like a big difference,
Mm.
I think it's kind of hard because you kind of gotta just live life and grow to learn lessons. Like you gotta, I guess what I would tell people is it's a hard pill to swallow, but you're gonna fail a lot before you win.
Mm.
You know, because I think that's what hinders a lot of people in general is failure.
Oh, yeah. Of
Like the
course.
fear of failure is the number one thing that stops people from trying anything. And there's nobody who's ever won without failing a bunch of times first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that, and I laugh about it a lot because it's the most generic thing ever, but the most true thing and the thing that has got me the furthest over everything is be yourself. That is the most over said thing that people, it goes in one ear and out the other, but it's the truest thing and the most important thing you could ever do early on is be yourself, and just whoever likes you for you. And whoever doesn't like you because you're being you and you don't want them around anyway. So
Yeah.
just be yourself and know you're gonna fail a bunch of times before you win. You'll be all right.
Yeah. It is funny how the most sage wisdom is a victim of its own like saturation,
Yeah.
where it's like the best advice is one that you've heard so many times that you don't derive
Yeah, you
meaning from it
almost
anymore.
numb to it.
It's like the treat others how you wish to be treated.
Yeah,
Like, we hear that all
exactly.
the time, but that's a good one.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
but
a good one.
when kids hear it so many times, they stop hearing it.
Yeah. And it don't
It's just
feel
like,
like
oh yeah, I've heard that
something.
one. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it don't feel like something that you can apply right now that'll give you immediate results when you hear it.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's the thing too. But it actually is though.
Yeah.
That's the irony of it. if you start treating people how you want to be treated and you be yourself, you will immediately start seeing results
Yeah,
in your life.
absolutely. Yeah, the you know there's a more modern version of that I hear in hip hop is like the energy you put out into the world, you receive back,
Yeah,
and that's pretty
exactly.
much the same thing. But
Yeah,
it's really good to rephrase these things because once something's been oversaturated, kind of loses its meaning in a
yeah.
lot of ways.
And it's super obvious, but also like I think it kind of ties into like you fail a lot before you win because like there is a lot of stuff in society that will like try to push you away from these simple things,
Yes.
that'll try to make it seem like if you act like this person, it might be better for you. Or if you
Mm,
try to take a shortcut and snake somebody or like, do something that you wouldn't want somebody to do to you, it might get you further.
yes.
But you will slip and fall on your face every single time until you learn that that's not how you're supposed to do it, you
Yeah.
know?
Or you'll burn bridges.
Yeah. And I'm 30 years old, and I'm not like old or nothing, but I've lived enough life to know that like I've slipped and fell on my face, and I don't ever try to tell anybody any advice from a place of like I'm better than you. It's like no, I'm just telling you how I slipped and fell on my face so you don't have to,
Yeah.
you know? And and in the music industry in general, I was gonna say in hip hop, but the music industry, the Hollywood entertainment in general is brutal.
Mm,
Being an artist is brutal, you know? And like I said, the industry and some of the people will try to like deter you from those ways a lot. And sometimes you might consider it, but you it never is never worth it in the end, you know? And
yeah.
like even like really small stuff, like on an everyday basis, just try to be a really good person and be you the best that you
Yeah.
can. And like I promise that's like half the battle. Like
Yes.
you still got to put a lot of work into your passions and all of that stuff. You can't just sit around all day being you and
Yeah.
treating people well, but those two things will get you really far.
Absolutely. Yes, we
Yeah.
can see like where it goes, and we see examples of that where one person has heavy on one, but like not on the other.
Yeah.
Like we see artists who like we did admire, but we see that they treat people poorly or they're terrible
Yeah.
people, and we're like, I really don't feel comfortable listening to their music anymore. I just
Yeah.
don't want to mess with them anymore.
Yeah.
Or God forbid when you meet one of your heroes and they disappoint you,
Yeah.
you're like, damn, like that sucks. That's a
Mhm.
really rough one,
Yeah.
But it's if you look back, at the time it sucks, but it's better to you'll look back later and be like, I'm glad I didn't idolize that person for a long time,
Yeah.
because if I hadn't have met them, maybe I wouldn't have known, the
Yeah.
world would have just gone thinking this person's great. But then
Yeah.
I'm glad I knew, and then I could put my, inspiration or like my eggs in the right baskets, pretty much,
Yeah.
drawing inspiration from the right people who have good energy and like actually treat people with compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the people that stick around the longest naturally. And yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and we when we of course know people on the opposite, wonderful people, but it's whatever it is, they don't take advantage of the drive and motivation they have,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
depending on what it is, great people, but we all know an artist who is like, if you put as much time into blank as you do this,
Yeah.
then I can imagine a
Yeah.
great future for you. But
Yeah.
all you focus on is this thing that
Yeah.
you feel is not productive. As like, if you just did this, man, you're so good.
Yeah.
But everybody finds their way,
Yeah.
and
Eventually.
I've met people who genuinely just don't have an interest in music, like or pursuing music as like a career or a dream, who are so naturally gifted at it that makes me like upset.
Hmm.
And that's how it is. That's there.
Yeah.
And but I know for me, I'm not. I don't have this like great natural gift, for my instrument or a lot of the stuff I do. But I know that this is something I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or I will die trying doing it for the rest
Mhm.
of my life. There's no option.
Yeah.
It's going to be that way,
Yeah.
and so you fight like hell every day for it because there's no other option. Because I feel like that's the only way to
Yeah.
you have to live it, and
Yeah.
you have to go into that deep end
I
to
agree.
find the success you're looking for. Because if you're
Yeah.
1 foot out, 1 foot in, then you'll have just like half of what your opportunities could be. But
Yeah.
if you're, out there, even if you're almost drowning out there, you're still on the way. You're still going down the current to your
Yeah.
goal.
I
You know,
feel like it's a sentiment that I've heard like elsewhere, but it almost takes like a little bit of delusion to like
yes,
shoot for like certain things, like specifically like high paying careers in arts or whatever. Like you have to kind of like embrace the fact that the odds are low,
oh
and
yeah,
you got to be like, well, I'm gonna be one of the people that make it though,
that's
and
right.
you have to tell yourself that all the time.
Yes,
Yeah, you
yeah.
just gotta nail in that mindset.
There's a really really simple quote that a driver's ed teacher told me once, and he said, "The car tends to go where you're looking." He didn't know he was
Wow.
summarizing the human experience.
Wow. That was
Uh,
General Iroh.
but that is rung true all like in so many ways. Like if you're negative and you're upset at everything, and you're gonna get negative things back, or
Mm,
you're gonna lead a negative sort of life. But if you work hard and treat others with compassion, you're gonna that's the you get in what you give back, but it's like what's up here, like
mhm,
we talk about, if you bring, if you're negative inside, or you have these destructive self-destructive ideologies, then you're gonna have a self-destructive future.
mhm,
And so, yeah, the car tends to go where you're looking, and it's hard to kind of train ourselves to do that. But once I feel like you're just locked in, and you just wake up every morning knowing that this is my life.
mhm,
Uh, people talk about this is really great, just like saying there's affirmations, but just really believing, like no longer saying I'm trying to become an artist. Like I am an artist,
mhm,
and I'm working every day to just get better at what I do. Just trying to kind of situate yourself where you are having these affirmations, like I am this, and I'm going to be this, and that is that where people kind of mark in the delusion. He's saying
mhm.
I am a Grammy winning audio engineer.
Yeah,
You just tell yourself I'm going to be, like it's going
yeah,
to happen, or whatever goal it is that you have for yourself,
mhm,
and you live the life, you live that role, instead of trying to fit into that mold, or trying to pretend like you are, or aspire to be this thing that you already are, really.
yeah,
So I know that's a really important part of it.
yeah. It is
Alan Weiss, if music is medicine, what does it heal?
the mind.
The mind. I like that. That's so true. What is a moment of complete failure that you've had that ended up being a complete blessing?
Um, hmm, let me think for a second. Is it that there could be a really good lesson in there?
I think some of the best lessons are from failure.
Yeah,
Well, the majority of them.
yeah. Um, something that ended up being a big blessing. Um, I would say staying home, like staying in Louisville.
Mm,
I think um because early on making music and stuff, there's a bunch of people that would always tell me like you need to go somewhere else, and because there's no scene here, and like people don't rap like you here,
mm,
and people don't like, you know, care about that. And but it was all coming from love. And I also had like opportunities to leave too. Like I had chances to like move to like the West Coast or the East Coast, or like a bunch of different places over the years, and I always chose to stay here because I just had like this passion for like turning Louisville into that, you
Yeah.
know? And the reason I say it could probably be seen as a failure that ended up being a blessing is because you never know you never know what could happen if you don't try. And that's one of those things that I can't really like go back in time and do. So in a way, I kind of failed to like see out that path of what could have happened if I tried to bounce around and these other scenes and other places. But I think it turned out to be a blessing because I have over the past few years watched Louisville's music scene evolve into something that it was not like years ago. You know, there's
Yeah.
always been um like dope artists in Louisville, but nowadays it just feels like even though it hasn't like hit like a crazy level yet, but it just feels like there is community and there is a scene of people that care if you care. Like
Mm.
there's community and I feel comfortable like embracing people who want to try. Like if like nowadays, I feel like if I know somebody who wants to make music, I can. There's a bunch of different places I can point to where they can record. There's a bunch of people I can point to and say you can get a dope video. You can go here and perform.
Yeah.
You know, and all of those things would be easy too. Like it's not like that's none of that stuff would take a lot of work. Like there's a bunch of dope studios, bunch of dope videographers, bunch of dope um like promoters and people throwing events and showcases and stuff. And it's also kind of easy to do your own if you have like maybe a little money or like a little connection to a smaller venue. Like you can put your own show together and um also still am in the process of um doing some stuff that I think will take it even further. You know, like I got obviously a bunch of music and videos and ideas for events and stuff that I plan to pursue. And I plan to always be around for anybody who needs me, you know. And I think, like, you know, putting in whatever effort I can while I can here is something that I'm more proud of than if I would have like went to LA and blew up and forgot about Louisville, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a way more profound mission than
Yeah,
to just,
yeah,
go to LA and blow up. You're
yeah,
changing a whole city.
yeah. I think that's something I'm kind of proud that I did, just and am doing, you know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. That's a great
Mm.
answer. How do we stay authentic when algorithms reward imitation?
You kind of just gotta suck it up. I think I just say that off the top because that's what I've been telling myself.
Yeah.
It's like you know what, the algorithm don't like you. You can't do nothing about it.
Yeah.
You got to just focus on these 10 people who saw it today.
Yeah.
And, you know, just keep promoting and try again, you know, because I like, you can't forfeit your artistic integrity to do what the algorithm wants you to do. Like, that's to me, that's not even an option. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Just, I feel like I lost all meaning of what I'm even doing at that point. Like the whole thing behind what I stand for almost. Like I'm not gonna forfeit my vision to please the algorithm. But if the algorithm decides like only this group of like rap nerds will see your posts, so be it.
Yeah. That's your audience. Finding your audience is what they tell you to do,
Yeah.
not find like the algorithm is like that shit's for everybody type of audience,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
everyone, trying to find what's most popular. But underground hip hop is all about, establishing a career and like finding your audience,
Yeah.
and artists have, establish their people, and they can now tour and do like, sell out, 500 cap rooms and do their thing,
Yeah,
and make a good living off that.
yeah. And those artists, I mean those 500 people in the room really fuck with you.
Yes, and it's not just because it's a trend or it's cool to like you.
Yeah,
They know
yeah,
your lyrics, like
yeah. Like
they really fuck
they,
with you.
yeah,
That's really special too. Yeah,
yeah,
I hadn't thought about that aspect of it, but you're totally right.
yeah,
Like people just going to your show because it's trendy.
yeah. Or
It's
like,
like a really interesting way to to interact with your audience. 'Cause they're like, I don't know
yeah.
who you are, I just heard you were cool. So
I remember there was like a whole thing about like artists complaining about their song blowing up on TikTok and people going to see the show just to like sing that one little sound bite and they don't know anything else. Like that's what you get trying to please the algorithm.
that's a very good answer. Yeah, you'll get people just going up for that one part of the TikTok and
Yeah.
then probably leave after that.
Yeah,
Well,
just
you
to
got 8
film
songs
that.
after this?
Yeah,
I'm
right.
out.
I don't know any of this stuff.
That's
All your
crazy.
favorite music, they don't know none of that.
That's fascinating and like so true. Like that's a great answer. I think that's what people need to hear really is like what
Yeah.
is the end result of that? It's like people think of number go up and
Yeah,
then they're like
exactly.
that's good, right? And then but no, but it actually ends up being that.
Yeah.
People just liking you for like
That one thing.
yeah, just liking you for being popular and not for
Yeah,
being an artist.
exactly.
That's end stage right there. It's not what you want.
Hmm.
What is the most mystifying pattern you've noticed in how inspiration visits you?
Pattern. Um,
Like when I find that when this happens, I get inspired, or like and you the moments you find unique.
I
Like people
think
is like, oh, when I'm driving or I'm in the shower or something. But
I
sometimes,
think since I'm just like I'm such a fan, like fan has gotten ruined by that not like us. Every time I say it, I just think about
uh,
that. But I'm such a fan of everything that I'm into. Like I'm really a hip hop nerd. I'm really like a gaming nerd. Everything I'm into, I'm a nerd about. So I think the thing that I get the most inspiration from consistently is other people's stuff.
mm,
And uh I don't I don't honestly don't it's weird because a lot of ideas don't just randomly come to me when I'm not like digesting some kind of something.
mm,
Like, and it's not like when I'm listening to music, I sometimes I listen to music and get ideas for videos, or I watch a movie and get ideas for songs, and like I feel like when I'm not digesting some type of art, I'm kind of not think that's like the time where I'm not really thinking about it,
mm.
and I'm kind of just like um just in the moment, I guess. But um yeah, just lost my train of thought again. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Uh I was saying I was digesting
Don't
art.
usually get inspiration like in random moments. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people describe, like I was just in the garden the other day, and then this crazy hook
Yeah.
came in my head.
I remember what I was gonna say. Sorry. The inspiration that I get from other art kind of gets annoying sometimes. Like I can't watch or enjoy anything without picking it apart. And
Mm,
I am always analyzing, like, especially now that I started doing like videos and stuff, every movie I'm watching, I'm always thinking about what's the lighting like and what's the cameraman doing and
yes.
what's edited and what's like practical effects and music. I'm always just like hyper focused on like the drum pattern and like the artist inflections and stuff. And I'm just like, cause I'm a nerd about this stuff and I'm like super into it. But it almost prevents me from being able to just like enjoy stuff like I used to when before I was making it.
Yeah.
Like so Yeah.
I was going to ask you, that was my next question pretty much that you just answered. I was going to ask, how is like creating your own art affected the way you experience other people's art?
Yeah.
And my uh, jazz teacher in high school had he was a character, but he did have one really great thing that he left me with, which was how musicians experience music and how everybody else experiences music. And when I was that young, I didn't realize that everybody experienced it differently depending on, whether they were musicians or not.
Mhm.
But we were all, sitting there with, our guitars and our sheet music and stuff. And uh, he described, most people experience music as a wall of sound and they
Mhm.
receive it all at once as one unit.
Mhm.
But musicians and producers and people like you experience it one piece at a time, all separate pieces. And you
Yeah.
see every single
That is
part
exactly.
component that goes into making this thing
Mhm.
instead of experience as one monolith coming
Yeah.
at you and experiencing it as a whole. And one thing that musicians and artists really try to do is recapture that audience feeling, how to ignore that and try to
Mhm.
make it into a monolith again, into
Yeah.
just one single thing that you're not like, oh well, that snare drum, it's like, or that, or you immediately
Yeah.
start picking stuff out where people are like, what do you mean, like I don't what do you mean the snare drum is like too loud or whatever? I don't hear that, and I think that is it is we get a part of that at certain points when we listen to music that we really like. That moment where we get that emotional investment, when we get immersed. That
Yeah.
moment of immersion is when we then can experience the music as a whole again. And I
Yeah.
think that's why we really, love the artists that we have come to find are our favorites, because they
Mhm.
bring us back to that experience of experiencing that music as just the stream of consciousness or the whole that it is, the wall of
Yeah.
sound it is, and just being lost in it, not thinking of the technical stuff
Yeah.
behind it, because there is this level of mastery in which, even for the artist, even for the engineer, that those individual opponents go away and it goes back to being this one thing. I think it's like
Yeah.
when it's like really great audio design in video games is when you don't realize it's audio design. When
Yeah.
like Link swings his sword in Breath of the Wild or something and it makes the swishing sound, your brain just goes like, yeah, of course it makes that. It
Yeah.
doesn't think, oh, somebody programmed that to make it
Yeah.
sound like that. Your brain's like, it's so good that it takes away that component sound,
Yeah.
where you would think, oh, that's good Foley work they did there. Your brain is kind of tricked and is like, of course it does that. And
Yeah.
that's a magical moment. And
Yeah.
when it happens in music, you're like, wow, I didn't even think about like anything but what was being said, through the music, which
Yeah.
is a really, really powerful. And I think we all kind of strive for that. I feel like that's like end level mastery where
Yeah. Yeah.
and it only until maybe like after, like when it's happening, when you're watching that movie, that, Wes Anderson film, you're not thinking about how the shots are done in the moment because you're so immersed into it. It's
Yeah.
only until after or upon later reflection, you're like, wait, how did he do that? Like, what is
Yeah.
that? How did he do the scene change like that? At the moment, at the time, I didn't see it, or I didn't
Yeah.
think about it, but now I can look back at it. And I think that's the best of both worlds, is to be able to experience it as what was originally intended and then go back as like a creative and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I can kind of pick
That
apart
is
how this works.
definitely true. Yeah. I think once something is like once you like kind of like experience something, whether it's a song or a movie or whatever, a couple times, then you can kind of like really get immersed in it. I was
Hmm.
gonna say, have you ever had like have you ever felt like that feeling is like like necessary?
Which feeling, the as a wall
Like
of sound components,
yeah,
or
like hearing everything, hearing all the components. Like sometimes I feel like it's kind of like in a way, because I'm not to go on like a tangent, but um, I saw a video of somebody having an album listening party where everybody in the room had headphones on. And I
mm,
always tell people like that's always how I picture people listening to my albums. It's just like sitting somewhere quiet with headphones on, fully focused on it. But I know
mm,
most of the time that's not how it's happening.
right.
But I just feel like sometimes I feel like as artists, I think that's what our ideal situation is that somebody sits and listens to every little sound in this and every word that I say, like, and only focus on that at least once. And
Mm.
then like you can like casually listen to it. I just sometimes I just think like I wish that was like more like normal, I guess.
Yeah, it makes me think of, when we make an art and we have something in mind for what we're saying behind our art, like w- when we release it, it's like it's out in the world and it's no longer ours anymore.
Mhm.
And to the point where you could be saying something like, you know, treat others with compassion or whatever message you're trying to say through your music, and somebody else will hear it and be think that it derive the total opposite message. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, he's trying to say this,
It's
and
ironic.
you're like, you're not there, but
Yeah.
you got to know that that's happening. People are
Mhm.
interpreting what you're saying incorrectly, and that's a part of it. And I
Yeah.
think the question was like, is it necessary? No, but we can't help it.
Yeah.
We can't help but kind of not experience it as we can't help but kind of break it down. So yeah, like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
I think that's just part of curiosity,
Yeah.
when it's like, how in the world did you do that? And we love guessing, especially with
Yeah.
movies. Like, how do you think they got that shot?
Yeah.
When it's like the
All the
camera
time.
goes through like when it says like shot in the 70s and it's like going through an office building and then it goes down and it goes through a car window and you're like,
Yeah.
they didn't have drones
And it
back
like
then.
goes
What
to
the
a mirror and
You're like,
reflects somehow.
yes, the mirror shots. You're like, how do and you can't help but think because that's delightful part of it,
Yeah.
and that that artist has done their job. Uh, I think that's what we all strive for in our art, and it reminds me of another really great quote. I don't know who said this, but don't be a lazy magician.
Yeah.
Like when the best magicians, are the ones they do a trick in front of you, and it's like you're sold. It's
Yeah.
magic. You're like,
Yeah.
have no idea how you did that, but it was really cool. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed what you did, and I don't know how you did it. So,
Mhm.
boom, like that is the
Yeah.
that is the magic. That's the immersion. That's the moment, and we want to be the person on the other end to make that song or that shot, that music video that people are like, I don't know how, but I know that when I was experiencing it, it was incredible. And then for people to go back and try to dissect it and be like, oh, we probably did this, or. And so going back to the music, uh, yeah, once you release it, it's out there. You can make clear, what the song's about in interviews or a post or whatever. But it's as if people are going to take your music and they're going to interpret it in any way that they will, and there's
Yeah.
nothing that you can do about it. And uh, they'll hear it as the wall of sound, they'll hear it as individual parts, but I think that's just the beauty of it. As long as you're okay with the end product is, and you can put it out there, then it's got a life of its own now. And
Yeah. True.
only thing you can hope is that it inspires people and motivates people instead of puts anybody down, or makes
Yeah.
people think that they're not worth as much as they are.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of it. That's the our art's going to go out there, and I can't imagine how it is for like a somebody like a painter, somebody who they sell their original.
Yeah.
That's so different than I feel like the music we create. It's like you really got to give like the physical thing you poured so much time into
Yeah.
away to somebody who may just hang it in their bathroom,
Yeah.
in the guest bathroom where no one's ever going to see it, and you're like, oh, I when I was making this, I was drawing from all these profound influences, and now
Yeah.
it's going to sit in the bathroom forever. And it's
Yeah.
like that's like the extreme of it, though. But so
Yeah.
thankfully in music we're able to spread our art, so easily around everywhere for people to experience, on all
Yeah.
sorts of different platforms.
That's something I never really thought of. I've never thought about it from that perspective. That like a painter has to well, in any like physical art,
Hmm.
like you kind of have to like give away the original one of one thing.
Yeah.
Where in music you don't.
You don't. Yeah,
You
you got
just
your
have
stems right
infinite
there.
copies of it.
Right. Yeah, and back in the day, now that I'm just thinking about it, just like it is like not a physical thing. I guess it's on a hard drive. It's physical, but
Yeah,
uh, just a few years ago, I guess you did physically have your stuff when it was like on. I guess there wouldn't be too much of a difference between like having it on wax or magnetic tape or a hard drive. Really,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just it's all there. It's hard to quantify like a sound and
yeah,
holding it. It's like
yeah,
it's just it's on a medium, but it's really like vibrations in the air, and so
yeah,
it's hard to own that in some sort of way,
yeah,
or have a tangible version of that.
yeah,
But yeah, music is very unique in that.
yeah.
Think about art comes in all sorts of forms, like architecture. Like someone's gonna buy that and live in it, and then that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. An architect, I imagine, his dream would have all these tons of people and families experience the beauty of that home
Mhm.
in all sort of different ways. Say if
Yeah.
maybe just one rich guy, living it,
Yeah.
and they may enjoy the beauty of the home too, but you want as many people to enjoy your art as possible,
Yeah.
and people see the outside of the house and be like, oh yeah, it's really beautiful, but they won't know what you want people to know what it's like to live in it.
Yeah. And like the little details.
Right, exactly. The
Yeah.
small things that you put in there.
Mhm.
And so that's another really great thing about making music is you can have everybody gets to experience those details of what you created.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, I feel like and a lot of people feel this way too, I imagine, but we're more connected than ever, but people feel more alone than any time in history because of this hyper connection that it feels like everybody's like connected together, but so it's easy to, be on your phone and be like, wow, I I I feel kind of isolated.
Mhm.
What do you think we lose in translation between real human connection and the digital connection? And how can art bridge that gap?
Um. Oh wow. I think. I think that art can bridge that gap through the community that tends to just kind of build around it. Like, um, uh, I've always had like small friend groups, and I always been kind of like a introverted type person, not necessarily like socially anxious or anything, but I always had like my small group of friends that was you when I was a kid, it was like more my siblings and my cousins. And as I got older, it was like a handful of people from my school. But through through the connectivity of the internet mixed with the art of like making music and stuff, I have like met so many people that I would have never met if those two things didn't intertwine.
Mhm.
Like the internet and the art that I make. And as far as like people feeling alone, I honestly don't know. I think that's a mystery to
I think that's
everybody.
just going to be there. That's all that's going to happen. That feeling of
Yeah.
isolation, but how art bridges that gap between real world communication and digital communication.
Yeah.
I feel like art could be that way where you can you can somebody can say they feel some way online, and they could even have a video of them talking about how they feel, but music has a really special way of us making like giving proof,
Mm.
like giving us like, yeah, the receipts of like, oh no, this person been through this. Like there's a feeling that's a signal that's transferred over almost like you understand that this person has experienced this thing. There's a gravity to it. And when we experience that and we're also going through that thing, I feel like it helps share that load, you know. You know, a little bit of that weight comes off your shoulders and cuz somebody else is experiencing it too. You feel less alone
Yeah.
in that situation and less isolated, especially in those situations where, you know, you feel like no one feels like how I do. Until you
Yeah.
hear that song that's just so it's so unabashedly like the truth of how
Yeah.
you're feeling. It's
Yeah.
undeniable, and you're like, wow, like it, you don't want anybody else to suffer, especially if it's a negative feeling. You don't want people to, but especially somebody reaching out saying, I feel this way, convincing you that they have in their experience, and then having a positive message after that. You know, like I feel like, you know, in more angsty music, it's I feel this way and it sucks and everything's terrible and I'm upset about it.
Mm.
And has the initial of like, oh, I feel less alone. I'm pissed too. I hate the
Yeah.
system too. I hate this shit. But then you can go further than that. Cause for a lot of people that's like, yeah, let's fucking go. I'm right with you. But then you can be like, now that we've established this, that we have this commonality,
Mm.
how do we heal from this? How do we grow from this?
Yeah.
And that's like that's like your Fontes of the world who are
Yeah.
like truly trying to heal their community
Yeah.
and like say, now that we understand this, how do
Mm.
we let's walk and talk through it. Like, how do we
Yeah.
get through this together?
I think that's like almost like a foundation in most of my writing when it comes to music. Like I always try to like say vulnerable stuff, even if it's like peppered in around a
Hmm.
bunch of like bravado. Like
Hmm.
I never wanna I never wanna miss out on a chance to like, reach somebody.
Hmm.
And I think like it's the most fulfilling to me personally when when that's how you when that's how I attack writing raps, because I can have a lot of fun with it on some songs, but the ones that are like the most important are the ones where I get vulnerable and I say stuff that like I'm aware that like if somebody, for example, who cares about me heard it, might be like,
Hmm. Hmm.
is that how you that's how you feel? And you just like laughing, hanging out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I just wanna make sure it's said on a song, so like you said, like that one person who hears it can be like, okay, I'm not alone in this, you know?
Mm.
Cause like all my favorite music did that for me.
Same.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. When I talked to Dave Will Chris, he very much had that same experience. You know, he said, you know, he'd be around family members like, hey, I heard the new album. Like,
Yeah.
said you wanted to like die. I'm like, is everything good, man? He's like, yeah, no, I'm good,
Yeah.
man. It's
Yeah.
part of and he's like, he described that feeling of like, you know, when you that vulnerable, like that vulnerability, ironically, is for like strangers,
Yeah,
you
yeah, it
know, who
is.
need it the most.
Yeah.
And it's just a repercussion of the art of when like a family member is like I've known you forever and I never
Yeah.
knew that, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, it's something that I can only really communicate. It's like uh, art is therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm able to get it out through
Yeah.
this medium,
And sometimes you can communicate to people you care about that way, cuz like there's things uh that it might be hard for me to say directly to like a family member or something, but I can say it like proudly on a song. For
mm,
some reason it's easier to get it out that way. And or sometimes it's easier to get out those feelings in a song, not specifically for us like a certain family member or somebody adjacent. It could be um like a way to update everybody.
Mm.
too. Like I kind of think about that like um it's just almost like a way for me to like tell everybody who cares about me that I don't talk to all the time how I feel and like what my mental state is and like, what I'm thinking about. And I don't know why it's very easy for me to communicate my feelings through like raps. And lately I've been calling it poetry because I think it's more adjacent to poetry after a certain extent. It's like poetry over a beat. And uh I just think that that's kind of uh cool if anything. Like I don't know if it's like something that bothers me or um I don't really overthink
Mhm.
like necessarily how exactly how somebody might feel hearing it because I think I'm aware of it when I'm writing it in a way.
Mhm.
Like it's like I'm aware that I'm gonna record this and put it out and people might hear it. So I take that into account when I'm writing stuff that I know is gonna come out. And I'm like, I'm okay with everybody who might hear this hearing it, you know.
Yeah. I think maybe for some people may keep them from putting out a song and
Yeah.
maybe getting over an emotional obstacle because of that, that they just can't have this person hear it. Um, and I think it is, I think it is important for people to hear, what you're saying and know that, sometimes that family member might hear that song, but if it's the truth, it's the truth. And,
Hmm.
you might be giving them the gift, whether they take it and they don't like it or they're not,
Yeah.
like it's something that's important to you, and if they truly, love you or,
Yeah.
rock with you in any way, then they're going to accept that
Yeah.
because it is a part of you.
Yeah.
But it's something that people don't talk about a lot, it's like,
Yeah.
what are your small group of, or the people you grew up with, like your close knit people, like what do they feel when you say this? And have you
Yeah.
gone over this with them? It's like, well, a lot of time, no, I haven't. But
Yeah.
I was going through it at the time for the first time in the studio, and then it goes out, and uh I just think it's an interesting side, like a kind of behind the scenes kind of look at like what artists, especially in hip hop, like have to
Yeah.
experience. Like they have to go back home and like, we heard the new album, said some
Yeah.
crazy shit on there. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, do you really mean it when you say this or that, or like,
Yeah.
what and you kind of have to explain yourself, and
Yeah.
it's like the one place where people don't care you're an artist, which
Yeah.
is also, it's like a blessing too, because you can't have just a bunch of people who are like, who see you as an artist first.
Yeah.
I think that's what people describe who go past the tipping point of fame. They infinitely value the people who were there before that moment,
Yeah.
because after that you just kind of question everybody's intentions
Yeah.
afterwards. And so it's kind of nice going home to people, being humbled by parents or children who are like,
Yeah.
could care less about what you're doing. They're just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, but they'll pick out the one thing that they think was like negative from. It's
Yeah.
like, I heard what you said on TV. That I won't catch me saying that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I like that. That's, I think we just need those humbling experience, but it's never as wholesome as, that. It's there's gonna be things that are said on records that people say that are going to hurt feelings of people, that like, why didn't you come to me first for saying this?
Yeah.
And I think that I think it's a valid way of getting those things out there, you know, uh, because it's a form of therapy
Yeah.
in a way.
It is. It's something that I very cherish for I cherish a lot just for that aspect of it. Like just the therapy of it, just the way that it encourages you to journal.
Yeah.
Like if you write like introspective music about how you actually feel, like that's like not something new. It's journaling and it's like a basic form of like therapy that you could do for yourself. And like me, I just happen to put it in the form of a rap. But like most of my raps are me just writing out my feelings.
Yeah.
And that has a real effect on your mental health. And like I don't know, I cherish it all the time that I was just blessed with this knack for writing and being vulnerable in my writing and stuff. I don't really I feel like it makes me not harbor anything. Like I don't just hold in any feelings. They all come out. And I feel like I've personally, I think I got pretty good at making rap music. So like I'm able to like effectively get out these emotions in my raps, and I'm comfortable enough to actually put them out. So now it's like this extra layer of like, not only did I like journal out my emotions, but I crafted it in this thing and put it out to the world where it's like resonating with people, and they get to like get some kind of like therapy from it too.
Mm.
Like it's just super fulfilling, and it's something that I'm conscious of all the time when I'm like making more vulnerable songs versus like just kind of like fun like songs just to have fun and listen to. It just feels like it's more aligned with my purpose, I guess, to
Mm.
get vulnerable with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a whole unique journey going into that creative process, and like when you're really starting from scratch too.
hmm
And do you do a lot of production of your own tracks, right?
I did early. I don't do a lot of it now. Like the past couple years, I met a bunch of people that like produce and make beats that are so much more talented than me, and it's something I'm thankful for every day. You know, shout out to all of them. And but I did make beat all of my beats just for the people who want to hear specifically. Like my first few albums that are on all platforms, like Soar, Life, I think Vice Summer and Renaissance, like the first four of them, I think I made like all of those beats except for like maybe like one or two. And I started making beats like more out of necessity than
Mm,
anything. Like I didn't really personally have a passion for making beats until I started doing it because I just couldn't find beats that I wanted to rap on.
right.
And I was like out of frustration, I was just like, I just gotta learn how to do it myself.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I fell in love with it to the point where I almost like, do I want to do this more than I want to rap? Like, but yeah, I think in the end writing kind of won. So I'm like content with just using other people's beats because I have immense respect for, I think I have a lot more respect for people's beats than like an average rapper, if I'm being honest. Because like I make beats myself, and like I like I said before, I'm like a real hip hop nerd. So when artists send me beats, I feel like I like cherish that. I don't look at it like you just dropped off some files to me. I know this is your art. I know what
Hmm.
it took for you to chop this sample like this
Yeah,
and get this drum bounce, and I'm gonna like do it justice the best that I can, like every
yeah.
time. And I have fun with that. And I still make beats here and there just to see if I can. And I got some stuff that I produced myself that's came out recently and will come out, but most of the time I just use other people's beats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely feel the same way. I wanted to learn how it was done. Like after watching Rhythm Roulette, I'm like,
hmm
okay, I gotta
I
learn
love
how
rhythm
this.
roulette.
I gotta learn how this happens, like how this
hmm
works. And so I learned sampling, and then I got with Jans, and he taught me some things, and I I really did fall in love with it. And then that honeymoon phase ended, and I was like, okay, I'm really more of this kind of speed doing this thing. But as you said, there's people who like wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night just making beats,
hmm
and it's what they dedicate themselves to.
Yeah.
And I'd say to myself, like, it'd be a shame, like, if I were, like, somebody who, like, rapped or, like, made, hip hop music, I'd be like, it'd be a shame if, like, I was rapping on my own beats because, first off, they're not as good as these, somebody who's more experienced, but also it may kind of take out of, like, my pool of kind of energy that it takes to make my art. I'd love to put all of my cards, like, to put it, like, into making what I wanna make or what my, like, emotional place would be in that beat,
Yeah.
or on the song, and just focus on and let somebody who's really good at what they do make the beat, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, uh, I'm wondering for you, like, how do you find that, do you find that you write first, like, lyrics first, or you let the beat draw it out of you?
The beat, for
It
sure.
pulls it out of you
Yeah.
almost.
There's time I definitely get ideas. Sometimes I'll just be like I said, like I'll be watching something or listening to something and somebody'll say something or see something that sparks like a line, like a rap line, and I'll jot
Mm,
that down and I'm like, well, let me make something rhyme with it to get started, and I'll end up like writing something just without a beat.
mhm.
And then but most of the time I when I want to write, I'll go to, like I said, this beautiful, beautiful, majestic catalog of beats that I have from mega talented Louisville producers. You feel me?
Shouts out Simile.
Yeah. Shout out to Simile, shout out Roundtree, and Shy.
Mm.
I'm not going to list everybody because I'm gonna forget, but
Yeah.
they all credited on everything. Like, I love all of y'all, but I usually go listen to beats and then something. As soon as I hear like the first 1 or 2 seconds, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write something to this, and that's how I get. And however I'm feeling at the moment,
Mhm.
that comes after I hear the beat. But yeah,
How do you approach performance of your music? Like, how do you translate what you've done in the studio to a live sort of experience? Like, what do you interpolate? What changes for the live experience when you want people to experience you in person?
um, that's something I'm really like starting to think about more. Like now, like the last year or so, I started thinking about my performance a little more because um I I never really been much of a performer. Like that's why I've been saying over and over again, like I feel like I'm a writer. I feel like that's where my real talent and passion is when it comes to music, is like writing raps and like beat selection. I think those two things are like my whole bread and butter.
Mm,
So like getting into filmmaking was kind of like even a little easier than performance because like I feel like your music aesthetic and your visual aesthetic kind of tying together. So that was kind of easy. But performing has always been kind of hard for me. Like performing is something I just kind of wing. I go up there, I kind of black out, and then like people tell me I did good, so I'm like, okay, I'll just do that but better next time.
yeah.
And but lately I've been kind of thinking more like, how can I like make an actual performance that will like enhance the experience of the song? And I think I try to like just I don't know, like I try to give the vocal performance my all. Like I try to make sure I know all my words, I emphasize all my words, and I focus on like um eye contact and trying to like really make people feel the words, because I feel like my strength in my music is the words. So I try to emphasize that, but I'm also like just still learning. Like I've only done like kind of like local shows, and uh and I just said to say I haven't had like real production or anything. So uh I don't know. I've been kind of just like going up and rapping. But yeah, most of the time I just kind of go on stage and I like kind of black out really. Like I just kind of just get lost in the moment, and like I'll be rapping and then the crowd will make noise and I'm like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
at a show, and they like it, so I'm gonna keep going. And yeah,
Do you think you enter that flow state in some sort of way when you're up
yeah,
there?
for sure, most definitely.
It reminded me of that, like the I go up there and black out, and then suddenly the show's over, and people say,
Yeah,
"Great job!" It sounds like flow state, kind of you
yeah.
just enter
But I
that stream
also
of
am
consciousness.
I am present,
Hmm.
you know. Like I don't want to make it seem like I'm not paying attention to anything. I try to be present, and like sometimes I'll like remind myself, like, hold on, be a little present. Like they're having fun. Like take it in.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, people are actually enjoying it, and you like this. Like enjoy what's happening, but also like can't help but like kind of just go into the flow state too.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. I, I think live performance is a whole different animal, and it's tough to know. I think it's tough to know how to communicate what you want to, or
Yeah.
what. And but I think it is really fun to think about what you want to bring to your audience. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it is important for people to just kind of get a little abstract with it. Like, think about, like if there were no limits, like what would you do? I
Yeah.
think that's an important part. Be like, don't put the the guardrails on when you're in your head thinking about, like, in a
Yeah.
perfect world it would be like this, and then try
Yeah.
to distill that into something that's possible afterwards. It's like, how
Yeah.
can I do that?
Yeah.
I,
True.
and I but yeah, that is a I hadn't thought about that kind of, like, the editing flow state being connected to the performance flow state, but it only makes sense that
Yeah.
those two are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Um, how do you know when to push through a creative block when you're writing, and to when to let things breathe?
Um, I think I think I think I don't really push through creative blocks. Like period. I used to like try to, and I would get like I would oh sorry.
Very good.
I would try to like fight that writer's block or creative block feeling. But I learned very early on, if you force it, it's not going to be as good as if you just let it happen organically. So, like, anytime I'm like, I feel like anytime I'm working on anything and I just hit a creative block where I just feel like I can't think of the next thing, I'm not having fun no more, I don't want to do this, I just stop, you know?
Mm,
And like reset, maybe sleep on it or like come back when you are inspired again or delete it. Sometimes you just got to delete it.
yeah, I think that's hard to hear, but yes,
Yeah, sometimes that
yeah.
idea is something you aren't feeling anymore. And maybe there's a nugget of it that you really like and you like, I just want it to work, but not every time you need to delete it, but sometimes it's like the idea is not salvageable,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah, it's back to that sunk cost fallacy. We have so much time. It's like, I spent so much time making the beat and doing the song,
Yeah.
but deep in your heart, you know it's not working out. But it's hard. That's that fear of failure again. It's like, but I don't want to call this an L. It's like,
Yeah.
but next time when you're creating a song where you diverted on that path to get to where you are here, so you
Yeah.
can be like, okay, maybe I should really do this next time. Kind of focus on the beat first, and
Yeah.
because sometimes there's all sorts of things that can happen, but like before the beat's done you start writing the lyrics, and then like the
Yeah.
beat doesn't match the actual structure of how the lyrics are written, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, now I have to remake the beat, and then it doesn't sound the same because the beat's actually meant for this, and it's a whole mess.
Yeah.
But like, it is good to just say it's valid, it's totally okay, it's natural to just have to let it go, just
Yeah.
like
I think
restart.
that feeling also kind of goes away with like experience. Not fully
That
goes
fear
away.
for sure.
Yeah, but like the more you do it, whatever your thing is, the more the better you get at it, and you'll just know what you're doing more often. I feel like I don't really hit a lot of creative blocks any, like if I'm being honest, that rarely ever happens to me to the point where I'm kind of like thinking like writer's block and all of that is kind of just a myth. That just really all that is you don't want to do what you're doing and you're forcing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's okay. Like, cause theoretically, I mean, well, literally, if you're doing art, whatever the art is that you're doing, if you're fighting yourself trying to do it, fundamentally, you should probably just like stop, right? Because
Yeah.
the art you're doing, unless it's like your job, I guess, and like you're getting paid like hourly to do it or
Yeah.
something, but like
Yeah.
in any other scenario, I feel like if you're trying to do something creative and you're to the point where you're like tapping your foot and you're like anxious and you're like not having fun and you like, ah, my head hurts, I can't think. That's a clear sign that
Yeah.
you're taking it too serious. You're doing it wrong now. Like you're sweating trying to make music. You know what I'm saying? Or you're
Yes.
trying to paint. Like just relax. Maybe you don't like whatever this is that you're making, whatever you're trying to do. Just stop doing it. Like if this was anything else, if you got paid to do a job and you should do the job, but in any other scenario, you just like recreationally creating something, like you shouldn't feel that way while you're doing it. Like,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
think it could be hard for it's hard for us to know, especially, and as you said, this comes with experience. So when you're
Hmm.
first starting out, yeah, you learn what the process is later on, but it's hard when you're first starting out to know what's hard, what is hard work that's to be expected,
Hmm.
and when it's friction that it's not going to work, or when it's a clear sign that this is not working.
Yeah.
There's and it's hard to identify like what's just, oh, this is just like the hard part, that they talk
Yeah.
about, like this is just where I got to kind of push, and because this isn't easy and I've never been told this was easy, and so it's hard to identify like what's work and what is a clear sign that this isn't going to work, and uh, what's naturally a part of the process, and what is a sign. And I think, yeah, that experience is a uh, clear indicator of like, because you've gone to that moment so many times. You're like, this isn't working, and you know what to expect out of when it is working, knowing like what that feels like and what that kind of friction is when it's working, but you got to do something tough, and we find it in different ways. Like, like the song isn't ruined if like the snare isn't hitting on time. You just
Yeah.
have to fix the snare. It doesn't
Yeah.
make
Exactly.
it doesn't, change the intention of the song or how people are going to, or it doesn't, completely misconstrue what you're trying to say.
Hmm.
That small thing has to be fixed,
Yeah. Yeah.
where sometimes just we know, like as we talked before, sometimes structure just gets in the way.
Yeah.
But we could go further into like what all the small things that could happen is, but I think it is hard when you're first starting out to just
Yeah. Yeah.
know like when to call it quits and when
Yeah.
it's just gotten difficult,
Yeah.
and because you'd hate to give up on something, especially when you're working hard on it and you feel good about it at first,
Yeah.
but then that feeling's starting to sour. Like, what's that point in which I know this isn't working anymore? I think that's something everybody has to find for themselves,
Yeah.
but it's good advice to know that, you'll learn that with time, and that
Yeah.
some songs you do have to walk away from. But I think, yeah, especially when you're saying, like, when you're sweating, like, literally
Yeah.
sweating and you're just, like, pulling out your hair, like, it's you gotta at least walk away from it. You don't
Yeah.
have to tell yourself, "I'm deleting this." You have to
Yeah.
delete it on the spot,
Yeah.
you can just say, "I'm just gonna close this out for the night,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
listen to it another time, and then most likely when you listen to it again another time, you'll be like, "Yeah, this isn't it,"
Yeah.
and we with time, just like 24 hours, you may have heard something on the radio that you're
Yeah.
like, I'm back to being inspired again. Let's go."
And when you're a little newer and like a little inexperienced, like your good stuff is like really rare. Like like when you first start out, it's like when you make something that you think is good, you like, oh, this one actually sounds good this time. And then it
Mhm.
starts to taper off. It's like, no, I had it and I don't know when I'm gonna hit again.
Yeah.
But like with experience and I keep saying and not just music because it relates to everything, but with time that'll just happen less, you
Yeah.
know? Like you'll just naturally like you'll naturally hit more. Is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
That's what I meant. Like you'll naturally like have a good song more often. So when you're having a bad song, you're like, that was a miss.
Yeah,
Just shoot another
it's
one.
less
You know,
devastating
yeah. I know
because
I can make a good
you have
one.
a giant pool of songs already
Yeah.
that you've made. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is truly the answer. You know, we can walk around it all we can, but it is experience. Because I've had a friend who wrote in his notebook every day, and like some of the stuff he shared with me, you know, it's like, wow, that is so good.
Mhm.
Even I was like, that's gonna be the best thing you like ever write, you know. And then but he did it every single day, and so
Mhm.
every day he was pulling out something that I was super impressed with. And
Mhm.
you get to the point where you can, I guess, you keep that your bandwidth with the conscious realm like becomes you that flow state gets easier and easier to reach, and you can get to where you're trying to go faster, really. Like what is in your head happens faster,
Yeah.
being manifested into reality, kind of how we talked about with like like the really great master directors. You
Yeah.
know, they had to make a ton all the mistakes in the world to like figure out how to make what's in here go out there,
Yeah.
and to know when it won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's I think that's important for people to hear. And I wonder, how do you balance influence from other art that has been creative and drawing influence from your personal experience? How do you
Uh,
marry those two influences?
um, I think I just um I I don't think I ever really put much thought into it. I think that's just something that kind of happens naturally. Like I
Hmm.
said, I kind of said earlier that your influences are just the foundation of your creative output. At least I don't think that it's possible to get around that. Like I don't know. There's probably somebody out here who just didn't hear anything, didn't watch any, didn't see anything, and just started making stuff.
Be curious
But
to hear what that would sound
yeah,
like, right?
I would too.
That'd be a hell of an experiment. Just some guy
Yeah,
who like lived in the woods and it was just fine.
yeah,
Never heard a song before, and then like just like told him to gave him a studio, you know, and
yeah,
with like, an audio engineer, and said like, make how you feel, and like see
yeah,
like music creation with no external influence. What would that be
yeah.
like?
That would be an
And we
interesting
might be. I
experiment.
feel like we would be very surprised. We may hear like a pentatonic scale, and be like, what?
Yeah,
Is that something that's kind of in the fabric of what music is? Like, or something like
yeah,
we might find some things that are fundamental that we thought were like taught, you know, textbook kind of things, but
yeah,
they might be deeper than that.
yeah,
I think that'd be very interesting
yeah. That
to
would be.
see like what that would be like. But that's not the world we live in.
Yeah,
And like that, but that would be very fascinating to see. But
yeah,
there's got to be some commonalities, like root core things in music
yeah. That
that,
develop your taste, like
yes,
just your taste in general, your taste in sounds and visuals and all of that. You have a taste, and then you have your, like you said, your experience, your personal experience. And when you go to create something, your taste that comes from your um inspirations will just naturally influence whatever you're trying to make, like channeling your experience. Like I just think those two things um go hand in hand almost. Like
yeah. It's like there's like words. We find things to attach certain emotions to express that emotion,
mm,
and we like instrumentalists will attach like a negative emotion with a minor key,
yeah.
and a happy emotion with a major key, and
Mm,
some complicated journey with like a pentatonic scale where it's like, oh, it starts like kind of minor, but then it
yeah.
goes major and gets resolved in sort of way. And it's very interesting to see like how people, well, that how universal that is compared to a language where you have to understand kind of the meaning behind each word, but then how even hip hop, which is heavily language based, seems to break through that mold too, with because of the producer and the inflection of the person behind the microphone. You can listen to a song in a completely different language, a rap song, and pretty much get the idea of what's being communicated, not
Yeah.
knowing a single word. And I think there's definitely something to that as well that's quite powerful, and seems like something we kind of overlook a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But it seems to be right in front of us as creators. We hear people all the time being like, "Oh, I didn't hear the words. I like the beat. I don't listen to it." We've heard that probably a lot of times, and it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's." But they and the person who has gone on Genius and broken down every bar, you know, may actually have a pretty similar outlook on the song as somebody who's like, "Oh, I just listen to the beat. I kind of just like how it sounds." Like if they may end up at the same conclusion,
Yeah.
which is still pretty uh, fascinating and also kind of a relief for artists who had what we talked about before of like how people are going to uh, e- how are people going to take my music or understand my music?
Hmm.
How are they going to interpret what I'm saying? And whether they interpret it wrong, completely wrong, that's going to happen. But more commonly, people are going to get the gist of it just through what you have built and created as a
Hmm.
whole and
Yeah.
experience it as a whole.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who's on the other side of it, on the creative side, could be like, I could see the producer was really with a soul feel with this, but the artist here is like on a conscious thing, and
Hmm.
they're combining these two worlds. And that's where you can kind of break it down and be like, wow, that's fascinating how they married these two worlds and and ended up here with this product. But somebody who doesn't know about any of that and just experiences all at once still says it's this product as well. It's like the same outlook.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to know as well, um, when thinking about like how is my music going to be interpreted out there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty wild to think about how music is going to continually change. Like, do you think that music, as I guess, if as far as time goes, music itself can always be original in its own way?
Um.
Like they say, there's like 88 keys on the piano. With infinite time, every song will be created.
Hmm.
I I seem to like to subscribe to, well, the infinite. There's infinite human experience.
Hmm.
And so even if songs go down to the same exact notes, tempos, everything, and
Yeah.
time signature, you could communicate something completely different
Yeah.
through through the same exact song. Like we've probably all heard somebody on the same BeatStars beat or same YouTube beat before, and they brought us something completely different. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like stark. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa, you turned this like drill beat into something that made me think like consciously about something.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, you turned this like seemingly conscious beat into like a drill type,
Yeah.
beat.
Yeah. That's what I would definitely say. I don't think that there's. I mean, no, I definitely think that there's always gonna be new sounds being created, just because the the determination, I feel like, will always be there for like the nerds who like who love it, no matter what it is, like what genre it is, what
Mhm.
instrument, whatever it is. There's always gonna be some kid that's like, I'm about to flip this whole thing on its head,
Mhm.
and yeah.
I liked. It just reminded me of what you had said before of something I wanted to touch on about like the in a world where say physical media has kind of just been phased out
Hmm.
completely. Even though I think kids are always going to have records like vinyl
Hmm.
records and stuff, but just because they're like in the movies, they don't
Yeah.
they're the least perishable of all the things.
Yeah.
They'll
And it's
last the
just your
longest.
album cover like blown up in a nice little square that you can display.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, and like the artwork and stuff. I tell a story about like I got there was a band called Jethro Tull, and they came out with a record, an album that they definitely put way more time into the album artwork and everything that went into it than they did the actual album, because the album was 2 songs. It was Thick as a Brick and then Thick as a Brick Part 2. And they're both songs were like 25 minutes long. They just pressed record and jammed out pretty much for
Yeah.
like 40 minutes and called it an album. But the album itself, when you open it, it opens up like this, like classic driver, but then it folds down and then down again, and now you have a newspaper. And
Mm.
every single page is like, I mean, it's a full-on newspaper for a totally fictional like town that
Mhm.
the album is based around. They've got like crossword puzzles, like obituaries, like you got comics, like everything you find in a newspaper, down to like the boring stuff like weather and
Yeah.
stuff. And I was like super inspired by that. I'll never forget that, like
Yeah.
how much work was put into that. And that is a shame that that gets lost in that. And so I
Yeah.
can see how the younger people, like, would a young person would love to get something physical. Was like, because
Yeah.
that's how people want to know, how can I stand out? And so in a world
Yeah.
with no physical media, or a small amount of it, people are like, you're gonna get a shirt, you're gonna get all this stuff that's handmade,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get. I'd love to see like way more unique merch items happening. I
Yeah.
love seeing when people go really weird with it.
Yeah. I
Just
agree.
some a silly thing we used to do back in like 2012 when we were playing shows at Spinelli. It's like we had it was a hole punch, but it was by Fender, and it was a guitar pick maker.
Mhm.
So we would make guitar picks for people
Yeah.
out of whatever they had in their wallet. And so we had like a lot of expired school IDs, and we'd
Mhm.
make a guitar pick out of it, and so just have their face on it or
Yeah.
something, or like library cards and stuff. Just small
Yeah.
things to it doesn't even have to be this like nice polished thing. It's just something to get the audience member to interact with you
Yeah.
and feel that they can approach you.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was young, and this is for everybody, but it's sometimes intimidating to walk up to an artist who just performed at the show and say, "Hey, your music means a lot to me.
Yeah.
It's really meaningful to me."
Yeah.
And sometimes the merch can be the way to kind of
Yeah.
bridge that gap, break the ice, be like, just look at the shirt, like, I love the shirt. By the way, I love your music,
Yeah.
or and just being very inviting, as inviting as you can. I think it's important when artists on stage say, I don't think it's played out anyway, but I love it when, and I think it's important when artists say, "Hey, come talk to me after the show. Talk to me at
Yeah.
the merch table,"
Yeah.
because I think people, have all these ideas of like, oh, they probably don't want to be bothered because they just, and
That's
if an artist,
definitely me.
yeah, like they don't want to be bothered at all, and like that's true. Like sometimes people, you get off the stage and you need a moment, and
Yeah.
when you do, you usually go and hide somewhere.
Yeah.
We've all done it just after a show, just like go and hide, smoke something real quick,
Yeah.
and just gather yourself, and then you can go out and like
Yeah.
be a person again. But it's hard to exit that flow state and then go
Yeah.
back to being just like normal person again.
It's something that I kind of like struggle with a little bit myself. Like as much as I want to like connect with people through my music and have them resonate like emotionally, sometimes when people do that to me in person, like they kind of spill like how much my music means to them, it kind of makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Like
it is
it
uncomfortable.
like makes
Yeah.
me feel a little bit like I don't know, like I showed you my diary and you like, bro, this stuff you showed me in your diary was like crazy. And I don't know,
Mm.
I think about that when I want, like I'm thinking to myself, I want to express to this artist that I really mess with them and like that this has had an impact on me. But I just also just know that like it kind of makes me feel a little weird sometimes. So I'm like, it probably make them feel weird if I did that. But then I also do like appreciate that too, though. Like I don't know, it's a weird thing.
It's a really I'd never heard that before about the reading, like they read your diary,
Yeah,
because that's such a good way of putting it. But
yeah,
you put it out there for them
yeah. I
to hear.
know.
But it is really odd, or it can be uncomfortable or awkward sometimes when like those things are brought up. Like
Yeah,
uh, it's not as much as the family member bringing it up,
yeah,
but when somebody from that you don't know, brings it up to you, it can be a awkward conversation to have. But I think that's one of those things, going back to what you said, that just comes with experience. You learn how to
Yeah.
make those connections
Yeah, yeah.
more often than not. You learn like you'll have an experience with somebody like, "Ooh, I may not have like reciprocated as much as I should have," and you'll
Yeah.
feel really bad about it, and you're like,
Yeah.
"No, to never do that again."
For
You like
sure.
make it a point to next time make sure that they feel heard and like
Yeah.
appreciated,
Yeah.
and that that they know that you appreciate them.
Yeah.
And it takes a few times, and but I think that's just another thing that comes with experience
Yeah.
because it's not something we prepare ourselves for because that it would almost seem kind of egotistical to like prep for that part of it. Be like, oh,
Yeah.
I know when I make this. Like before, it's like if before you started making a song, be like, how am I going to prep for when people say, "Man, that song's great," and like this song is so great, and here's why, and how I'm going to like prep for that. It's like that's not what we think about, and
Yeah.
artists usually uh, especially in the vein of hip hop or and like the culture that we're in Louisville, it's like we're not very social creatures. We're used to kind of going into our den and like creating and like polishing and like taking it apart, putting it back together again, and
Yeah.
until it's done, and then once we get out of there, we get to the show. It's like exiting the
Yeah.
cave and the lights you're
I
like,
think
"Ah," and
about
and then
that
people's
all the
immediately like, "That
time.
thing you made in the cave for, like, all those days, like, let's
Yeah.
talk about it." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, and my eyes are still getting adjusted to the light out here," you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I think about that all the time. I don't know how to like describe that feeling, but it's definitely um like it feels like well, yeah, like you just said, like it's like you get so locked in on the process of making it that when like you confront it with people that have heard it or seen it or whatever, it's just like I completely forgot that this was even like part of it.
I forgot that there was actually a process of it being received
Yeah,
and
yeah. I did
interpreted,
it. I
and
put
then
it
the
out.
the process of it being
Yeah.
received mean people are gonna be like, "I listened to it, and let me
Yeah.
tell you about it."
Yeah.
It yeah, it's funny how, yeah, we just don't prepare ourselves for that,
Yeah.
especially starting out. I think that's just a part of starting out, and, I I've definitely found that with myself as well, like, being like, "Oh, yeah, people are gonna hear this." It's like the first time when you edit like, the first time anybody mixes a song and then hears it in a venue, you get this feeling like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
it's, like, out here now."
Yeah.
I heard the song 100 times in my room thinking and you just some reason you just don't tell yourself it's gonna be played everywhere,
Yeah.
But, some people with the crazy delusion, like, maybe it's, like, that secret to success we talked about, like, that you gotta dilute yourself, but that's just at the end of the day, it's not the kind of people we are. We can't all be a Kanye West being like, "This is gonna be like this, and it's gonna be crazy
Yeah.
good," like, just have that confidence just because that's not who it's just not who we are. We just
Yeah.
don't identify with that. And so I think it's just something we need to genuinely work on
Yeah.
is that knowing that the music's going to be received and how to interact with the audience in that way because we've done this what we think is like the real hard part. It really is the difficult part, like curating the music videos, the performance itself, so
Mhm.
that we neglect to think about what the end of that is, and that's people wanting to speak with you and kind of talk about what you just made,
Yeah.
which is tough,
Yeah.
especially in the moment on the spot, you
Yeah.
know, when you're not expecting it. But I think it's we gotta have those connections. We can't just be an island, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, some people can be, some people just are like a Frank Ocean. It's like I'm not gonna talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But people are gonna love me. There's gonna be cults. But
Yeah.
it's like there's gonna be a whole Frank Ocean subreddit that loses its
Yeah.
mind every time he just appears somewhere, like in
Yeah.
a photo. Be like, this means album, right? Just because he showed his
Yeah.
face. And it's like, oh man, and you can see like why people like Frank Ocean would do that because people get crazy obsessed with
Yeah.
you and you kind of just want to hide yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's about finding that connection, really. And I think it's something we, as somebody who intends to go all the way to reach their goals, it's definitely something that should be cherished at this level, when people can walk up to you and tell you how much their music means to you without it being like, something that's less genuine. They still see you as like a person,
Yeah.
instead of just this idol of some sort or somebody that's separate than them. They'd be like, "Wow, you're just a person like me, and you went up and did that. Like, let's talk about what you just did." Kind of
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, we definitely don't prepare ourselves for that. But are there any projects that you're currently working on that should we look? I know you just released some music.
Yeah.
It was a album with a collaboration, right?
Yeah. With my homie Ara, another one of those incredible producers. Um yeah, it's funny how that came about. He kind of hit me up like mid-December, and he was just like, "Yo, we should get something out before the year's up." Like just like a song or something.
Hmm.
And like coincidentally, like not on purpose, but last year on uh January 1st, like 2024, I dropped a song with him called The Cycle. It was just a
Mm.
random song that he sent me a beat, I rapped on it, and I just put it out to I just want to put something out on New Year's Day to establish my momentum for the
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just put that out on Bandcamp, and he sent me uh like 3 beats, and I was thinking it would be like kind of the same, like I might just rap on one and put it out before the year's up because, it's my homie and I'm down to make a song with you and put it out before the year's up just because. And but he sent me uh over the course of like a week, he ended up sending me like 5 beats, and I just loved all of them, and I ended up doing something to every single one. So I just ended up putting it out as the Cycle Part 2 EP in
Hmm.
parentheses and dropping that on the first. So we might have a tradition. I don't know. But that's literally how that album came about. Ira wanted to put something out before the year was up, and we ended up making like 5 songs and just putting all of those out. And yeah, I shot a couple little visuals for it, like little simple stuff, like VHS filtered, like kind of like I wanted to be like Christmassy, nostalgic kind of vibe to the visuals. And yeah, it's just some really chill beats, really like, dope raps. It's 5 songs, and we also decided to put the instrumentals on there too because I'm into that type of stuff and he is too.
That's
So
cool.
5 songs, 5 instrumentals, and that's on Bandcamp, and it's actually on all platforms as of today, I think.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And as far as other projects I'm working on, it's just so much.
Mm.
I got so much music that I've been making. I got like 4 projects that are like literally finished, and I just got to do the videos and like artwork and promo stuff. And I still got I'm still recording all the time. I'm just always making music,
Awesome.
and yeah, I'm excited to flood it.
Awesome. So expect much more music from you, much more
Yeah,
videos, and
much more.
that current album. I love it's the instrumentation, as you said. It almost when I listened to it, it almost had like a house influence, almost like melodic kind of.
Yeah,
It had there's like the bouncy kind of house music
yeah.
kind of vibe to it. I got that was kind of
I
cool.
think we might be talking about 2 different things. Are you talking? I think because I released another thing like a month ago called the Hanzo EP, and
Mm,
that's also on Bandcamp, and that's weird beats.
mm,
That's like it's just like a little 4 song EP. I actually made all those beats, and it was just like some weird stuff that
mm.
I don't know how else to describe it. Like you said, the house vibes. I was just experimenting with like different like drum patterns and like weird synthy sounds and um switch ups and stuff.
I
And
love to hear that you're still producing then. You
yeah,
still that's something that you haven't
yeah,
completely given
yeah,
to, the the people who do it all the time,
yeah. I still dabble. Usually making like kind of like out of the box stuff. Like the same way that I said when I first started making beats out of necessity because I couldn't find what I was looking for. I think that's the main way I make beats now too. It's just
Mm,
like if there's like a specific sound, like I know I can't just ask
yeah.
somebody to make this. I try to like get it out myself. And
Yeah, out of necessity. I like that. Yeah,
yeah,
because that sounds like it's like when maybe in that situation is like you have the idea for the instrumental or you have some
yeah,
lyrics or a
yeah.
theme
I have
already
like
ready.
yeah, I have like an idea of like how it sounds or
Right. So
yeah,
in the case where you have maybe some lyrics written or a theme in mind, that's when you create the beat and kind of
yeah,
you
yeah,
start with like theme first, then beat. Whereas like
yeah,
a lot of the times, you
yeah,
said you hear the beat first and it pulls it out of you. You're like,
yeah,
oh, this is going to be
yeah.
like this, and you almost immediately know.
Yeah, I don't think I never really thought about it, but yeah, that is pretty much how it works. If I have my own idea, I'll probably make the beat myself instead of going to somebody and being like, "Hey, can you make me this type of beat that sounds like this?"
Right. Yeah. Because you
Yeah,
hate to be that guy who approaches like a producer audio engineer. It's like, okay, I need a piano, but I
yeah,
need it to sound like it's underwater, but like
yeah,
surrounded by static. You know what I mean, right? And
yeah,
it's like at that point you don't want to be that guy. You're just like, I
yeah,
know what I'm looking for. I'm
yeah,
gonna make it.
exactly.
Yeah. So that's wise because like
Yeah,
you're only gonna you have some trouble like when you try to
yeah,
make other people manifest thing that's like
yeah.
very clear in
Specific.
your head and specific.
Yeah,
But that's a I love that part of the process too. Like,
yeah,
and but there is just this cool magic of how like when once again like having it being pulled out of you, like when you hear a beat and it makes me think of like I wonder how many times it's like what the producer thought, because I know a lot of the times artists I've worked with are heavily influenced by the name of the beat.
mm,
That will very often become the subject of the song, whatever
yeah.
the name of the beat is.
I know
And
somebody like that too.
yeah, and so I wonder like how often like with the name not being there at all, like how close people usually land to where the producer was, because the
Yeah,
producer's in there hearing it in their head and like what could possibly be, who could hop on this, hearing who they want to hop
yeah,
on this. And that's where the magic, I love, like in this local scene where we have somebody like Simile who could hear, he's like, I hear Alan Weiss on this,
yeah,
and then he kind of curates it in a way. It's
yeah,
like you just got a custom made beat with like, it's
yeah,
not somebody's like a song that's just put on BeatStars. Like, yeah, anybody could hop on this and it would be cool. But like they hear you on it, and especially if that happens during the production process, you
yeah,
might hear some Alan Weiss kind of things, like
yeah,
motifs or elements that are bouncing around there that
yeah,
just make it like a your signature on
yeah,
there. So it's cool how it can start, lyrics first or with the instrumentation first or all sorts of ways. So it's good, like for people to know, you can start anywhere at any part of this.
yeah,
There's no rules.
yeah,
You don't have to, write bars first, then find in this, or just let inspiration happen. It's very malleable and dynamic, like how we create music.
yeah.
Do you have any shows coming up that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I actually got Black to the Future on February 15th. Producing a Con Generation, Jesse Lee's,
Wow.
AD Kendall, me, and 10th Street Dre.
Wow, that's stacked. Oh
Yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
gonna be fun.
When is that and where is that?
It's February 15th, and I don't remember exactly what venue is. I can look really, really quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wonder if it's our city, we seem to be getting more venues, thankfully, but we're still struggling with a venue pops up and then it disappears. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a Whirling Tiger, February 15th.
Oh, that's a great spot.
Yeah, it's
That
gonna be fun.
shouts out the shag carpeting and all that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of live instruments and like
Oh yeah.
jazzy, funky, rocky stuff mixed with hip hoppy stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that should be a total vibe.
Yeah.
Awesome. And where can people find you online?
They can find me as Alan Weiss pretty much anywhere.
Anywhere. You got that
Yeah.
one locked down.
Yeah, you can type Alan Weiss in anywhere, it's gonna come up.
That's awesome. That is a blessing for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Can't tell you how many people, kind of wish they could be on that top, you know, just
Yeah.
like all these
I
different
put a
things
lot
going
of stuff out, you know.
on.
I think I just won the Allen Vice
You won the Allen
race.
Vice. You won the Allen Vice race, not Allen Vice
Yeah,
_1247. Like,
yeah, that
absolutely
dude
not.
don't
That's
want
for
no
sure.
smoke.
Yeah, no, you don't want nothing. Awesome. Well, it's been excellent talking to you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
you
for
too,
taking the
bro.
time to be here and share with us your process and your thoughts on these things. Maybe if we get together next time, we can open up that diary and start
Yeah,
dissecting what we got going on
I'm
there.
all for it.
Yeah. But until next time, man, thank you
All
so
right,
much. I appreciate you.
thanks.